find my rest, and without you, I fall apart. You're the one that guides my heart. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you.
Where sin runs deep, your grace is more. Where grace is found is where you are. And where you are, Lord, I am free. Holiness is Christ in me. Oh, where you are, Lord, I am free. Holiness is Christ in me. Lord, I need you. We sing. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. Teach my soul to rise to you. When temptation comes my way, and when I cannot stand, I'll fall on you. Jesus, you're my hope and stay. And when I cannot stand, I'll fall on you. Jesus, you're my hope and stay. Oh, Lord, we need you. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, you're my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, you're my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. You're my one defense, you're my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you.
Good morning, and welcome to our Pre-Synod meeting in preparation for the 163rd session of our Diocesan Synod. And let me just say thanks to our friends at St. Paul's Bloor Street for providing us with that wonderful and inspiring piece of music and prayer to set the stage for our time together this morning. Thank you for spending time, especially early on a Saturday morning. I know it's only 8:30 and lots of you are probably doing other things on a Saturday morning at 8:30, but we're grateful that you're here with us. My name is Bishop Kevin Robertson, and I'm one of the suffragan bishops in the Diocese of Toronto. And I'm going to be chairing the first part of our pre-synod meeting this morning. And then a little bit later on in the meeting, I'm going to pass things over to my colleague and friend, Bishop Priscilla Shaw, and she will chair the second part of our meeting. Sometimes people say to me, what is a suffragan bishop? That's an odd name. We used to call ourselves area bishops. So what's a suffragan bishop? Well, a suffragan bishop is an assisting bishop. And indeed, that's what Bishop Priscilla and I do in our ministries. We support Bishop Andrew Asbill, who is our diocesan bishop, of course, and along with Canon Mary Conliffe, the four of us make up the Diocesan College of Bishops. I have the privilege of overseeing the South and West Archdeaconries of the diocese, and Bishop Priscilla oversees the North and the East, and Bishop Andrew the central area of the diocese. We also work together collaboratively in the oversight of the entire diocese, and it's our privilege and pleasure to work together. I'd like for us to move now to our land acknowledgement, and I'm going to offer that now. The land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Anishinaabeg nations, Métis peoples, and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. This territory was the subject of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Iroquois Confederacy and the Ojibwe and allied nations to peaceably share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. This territory is also covered by the Toronto Purchase. Today, Toronto is home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island. We will now open in prayer, and before I lead us in prayer, a reminder that today is the feast of St. Francis of Assisi. So we give thanks for the life and witness of Francis. We are mindful today of our stewardship of all creation. We give thanks for the ways in which Francis modeled the Christian life in the ways of simplicity and humility and poverty. And we gather in that spirit today. We are also mindful, of course, that we have a new Archbishop of Canterbury named yesterday, and we remember Bishop Sarah in our prayers as she begins to step into that role. Let us pray. Almighty and ever-living God, source of all wisdom and understanding, be present with those who take counsel for the renewal and mission of your church. Teach us in all things to seek first your honor and your glory. Guide us to perceive what is right, and grant us both the courage to pursue it and the grace to accomplish it, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. We will now take a moment to pray for those on our hearts and minds this morning, those in any particular need, those who have asked our prayers. Gracious God, we ask you to hold them in the palm of your hand, that they might feel your presence guiding them and loving them this day. Amen. Well, friends, the purpose of our pre-synod meeting today is to help to prepare all of us as members of synod to arrive at synod with a better understanding of the items that will be on our agenda. Just a reminder that synod is just 5 weeks away, and you are here on this call today because you are clergy or lay members of synod, or perhaps those who will be speaking as guests at synod. But we gather today in anticipation of that gathering 5 weeks from now. So there will be some presentations and, of course, lots of opportunities for you to ask questions as the morning unfolds. I'd like to ask you to be patient with us. We have a number of new staff who are running this program today, and some of them are doing so for the first time. So if there are some glitches along the way, I would ask for your patience. Our goal is to have everything run smoothly, but as we all know, sometimes technology doesn't always cooperate. So we will do our best and get through this together. I'd also like to note that the volume level of some of the presentations may vary, especially around the videos that we will be seeing. So you may need to adjust the volume on your own laptop or your own device, whatever you may be on. So if you're having trouble hearing, before you put your hand up and let us know, just try to adjust your own volume first. And if that doesn't work, please do let us know. Today's session is going to be recorded, and a copy of the recording and the meeting slides will be made available on the diocesan website by next week. Any questions during and after pre-synod may be posted in the next newsletter to highlight some of the important items that are being raised in this meeting. So a couple of housekeeping things. I'd like to ask everyone to make sure that your name is visible on your screen. So if you do raise your hand for a question, we will know your name and when to call upon you. You can change your visible name by putting your mouse over the name on the screen and then right-click, and you'll see there the ability to rename in the options that appear. I think it's actually at the bottom. So choose that option and then enter the name that you wish to use. And it's important that you do that, again, in case you have any comments to make or any questions to ask so that we can call upon you. Please note that each time we do have a question period, I will reiterate the instructions. While this may sound repetitive and be repetitive, we know that online platforms are not something that everybody is comfortable with. Some of us use these platforms every day and other people don't. And we want to make this meeting as accessible as possible for everybody who has joined us today. So with that, it is my pleasure to introduce to you our presenters and our staff on the call today. And for those of you who are presenting or staff, I would ask that as your name is called, please unmute and turn on your video and say good morning so that we can see you and be able to put a name to a face. So let's start with Bishop Priscilla Shaw. Bishop Priscilla.
Morning.
Morning.
Happy to be here.
Great. Our beloved Chancellor, Marg Creel.
Good morning, everyone. Good to see you all.
Morning, Chancellor. Our Secretary of Synod, Canon Laura Walton, ODT.
Good morning.
Our Administration and Synod Assistant, Ajit Philip.
Good morning, everyone.
Our Honorary Clerical Secretary, the Reverend Canon Lisa Newland.
Good morning, everyone.
Our Honorary Lay Secretary of Synod, Constance Kendall, ODT. Perhaps Connie's not with us yet. We'll look forward to her joining us soon if she's not here. Our Executive Director for the Diocese, Varun Balendra, ODT.
Good morning, everyone.
Our Interim Director of Finance, Stu Hutchison, ODT. Okay, imagine Stu will also be joining us momentarily. Our team from Data on the Spot, JP and Liam and Rowan.
Hi, good morning, all.
Good morning. Welcome to our meeting.
Thank you.
Our Netminders presenters, the Reverend Pamela Raymond and the Reverend Johan Dimpala.
Good morning.
Our Area and Area Council Working Group, the Reverend Canon Jesse Parker and the Reverend Canon Rob Mitchell. Good morning. Canon Janet Marshall, who will be talking to us this morning about regional ministry.
Hi there. Good morning.
Good morning. And the Reverend Lee Kern and the Reverend Samantha Caravan will be here to discuss, or are here, I think, to discuss the Tithe Committee.
Good morning.
Good morning. That's an enthusiastic good morning for a Saturday morning. Thank you. And last but certainly not least, we have Lori Robertson, who is running our slide deck. Lori, thank you so much for keeping the meeting moving forward by guiding us with the various slides.
Morning, everybody. Glad to be here.
Thanks. Good to have you here. Before we start our program for the morning, I want to explain that it is tradition in our diocese for the suffragan bishops to chair the pre-synod meetings, and for our diocesan bishop, Bishop Andrew, to be the chair of synod. Bishop Andrew is online, so you will see his name and perhaps even his photo in one of the little boxes. But both myself and Bishop Priscilla will be chairing today's pre-synod meeting. I now want to call upon JP Copeland and his team from Data on the Spot. They're going to introduce us to the new information and the voting platform that we'll be using for our synod in November. Now, for those of you who are members of Synod Council, you will know that this was introduced at our meeting back in September, and it was also introduced in the newsletter, but this is an opportunity to hear more about that. So over to you, JP and Rowan and Liam, as you take us through the details today. Welcome to our meeting.
Awesome. Thank you very much for having us today. It's a pleasure to be here, and we're very excited to be working with you all.
Great, thank you.
Just before I start, can you hear me okay? Wonderful. Thank you all very much. So on the call right now, we have myself, Rowan. I am working as a tech or a support tech for your synod coming up. So I will be on site helping you out with any questions you may have and leading up to the synod. And I also have my colleague Liam with me as well.
Hey, everybody.
So are you able to see my screen okay? It should be on the Data on the Spot or the Dots Connect platform. Awesome. Thank you very much. So this is the landing page or the home page for the platform. When we get into the Q&A section, I do have a QR code that people can scan and the link that you can find the platform at. I do want to note this was in the latest newsletter that was released, I believe, last Friday. So within this homepage, you will be able to find information within this marquee. For instance, if you hover over it with your mouse or if you're on your phone and you place a finger on it, it will stop. So you can take in some of the information a little bit slowly or at least your own pace. And as we come closer to Synod or even during Synod, we will be updating the marquee with new information. So please feel free to keep watching it and see any announcements that we have coming up. Some other information we have on this front page or this home page is a little photo slide of photos from previous synods. As we go through and leading up, we will update this photo slide. So stay tuned because we will still be using this as a way to interact and highlight some fun moments from Synod. The other thing we have straight away is a YouTube video with a voiceover going over how to navigate the Dots Connect platform. So if you have any questions after this call, feel free to send us an email. I will provide you all with our support information. But we also have the resources on the site that people are more than welcome to view and see if that answers any questions. At the bottom of each page, we do have buttons linking to the diocese social media pages. So if you do want to connect through any of those social media links, feel free to press on any of these buttons and you'll be taken to their Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or YouTube to get any content, updates, or just connect with them that way. When you see a button or one of these newsletters or FAQ navigation and voting tutorial video, blue banner things, you are able to press on them and it will take you to the page that it is highlighted. So those buttons are all clickable. And in this case, you can go to the newsletter page and look at previous newsletters, and the most upcoming newsletter will always be embedded into the site here. We will be continuously updating this with the new newsletters leading up to Synod and during Synod. So that covers the home page. I am going to go over quickly each of the other pages. There is a menu at the top of the screen here. If you're on a phone, it will be 3 lines and in the top right. If you press that, you'll be able to get all the information for the different pages. For example, we are highlighting the sponsors for the Synod. If you have any information on or want to gather more the links or information on any of the sponsors, you are able to press on anywhere within the sponsor card, get a little bit of information about them, and also their link. So if you want to press and visit their website, please view your sponsor cards and you'll get all their available information there. That goes for every single of these sponsor cards. We also have candidate profiles. So these are candidates that are running for Synod Council and Provincial Council. We have highlighted them in clergy and lay candidates. So when it does come time to, when the elections are being held, please feel free to press on a card. You can read about their bio and see images of them and their names. So again, if there's any questions about this, please feel free to reach out to us afterwards. But we want to highlight all of the candidates in a way that people can learn about them leading up to Synod and during. For the breakout rooms, we have embedded a flip book. So with these type of files, what you're able to do is use the arrows on the screen to go to the next or previous page. The other thing that these flip books have are menu bars at the bottom here. So you're able to full screen the flip books. You can zoom in. You're also able to search each of the flip books. So if there's certain information you're looking for, please feel free to try that. And again, you are able to flip through them and get a sense of, in this case, the different breakout rooms during Synod. When you want to exit the full screen, please press the button that brought you to the full screen. On the breakout room page, we also have some information in the meantime around the different types of meeting rooms throughout the Sheridan Parkway Hotel. So if you're curious about where a breakout room or a meeting may be held, please refer to this page, as you will be able to see a little bit more of a detailed information on where each of the meeting rooms are. The other thing we have here too, it is in the newsletter, but on the breakout room page, if you go to the bottom of this page here, you are able to press on this button and it will take you to the registration link for all the breakout rooms. So if anyone is having any issues finding any content, please again reach out to us so that we can ensure that everything is clear and optimized for all members. The next page we have here is the display tables. Within these display tables, we again utilize the flip book. So you're able to flip between to see the different types of organizations that will be highlighted throughout the Synod. Again, please feel free to either zoom in, you can search, or full screen this document. The next page we have here is the announcements. So at the moment, we do have some announcements as of the pre-Synod would be held virtually on October 4th. So thank you very much for having us. We will be removing and updating announcements as they happen. So as we get for more announcements within the diocese and parish, we will be updating this to the site straight away. So please stay tuned. We will be, if you have any questions or are wondering if anything has been announced, please check this page or the marquee on the home page, as that is where we will be putting the new announcements and information live. I already quickly went over newsletters, but I just want to reiterate that if you press on any of these buttons, you will be taken to each of the previous newsletters or the newsletters of your choice. The newsletters are ranked as newsletter 1 as the oldest, and then 6 in this case would be the newest. So when we get a new newsletter, that would be newsletter number 7. Again, please feel free to press on any of them, as it'll just take you to the newsletter and you'll be able to see them that way. For our last page, we do have an FAQs. So we understand that people may have questions on what to bring to Synod, what type of device do they need. So we do have some quick information on our tips and tricks for how to prepare best for Synod. The other question that we will get into next is, how do I access the voting page? So while this is a all-in-one kind of platform for getting information around Synod, we will also be doing the voting. So if you are a voting member, this is the site where voting will take place as well. We will get into that very shortly. I do want to note that once registration does close, we will be starting to send out the credentials for how to log in and access the voting platform. So at that point, if you do have any questions, we will open up a test question for everyone to try to log on, test out the system, and again, reach out to us if anyone requires any assistance or just has any questions. So feel free to look through the FAQs page if you do have any questions leading up to Synod, and hopefully they're able to help. If there's some questions that people feel need to be outlined here, please reach out. We want to make this as friendly as possible and a community board. So please let us know and we'd be happy to update with any other information. Again, just at the bottom here, we do have our YouTube video embedded into the site with how to navigate and log in and vote. So that takes us through each of the pages. Next, I'm just going to go back to the home page and quickly talk about this little bar down here. The first, we'll get into the vote last, but we have the agenda. So if you have any information or questions around the agenda, we do have it fully built in to the platform here. So on each page, you may select agenda, the agenda button, and you can go through and look at on each day what the program is looking like. The other information we have here is documents. So if you wanted to look at some meeting documents, you could go here and get a sense of the Synod Council's report, etc. So there's lots of interesting documents in there that you can look at, and then newsletters as well, we will be updating here. Lastly, within this, we have support. So if you get onto the site and you're, again, wanting to reach out about anything, whether it be additions to the platform or questions on how to access, please use this support to find our information. You'll be able to get our live chat, our email support, and our 1-800 number. We do have some guides and other help center information, but if you just want to get in touch with us, we recommend sending us an email or a call or a live chat, and we'll be with you straight away. So quickly, lastly, just within the vote. So I'll ask, wonderful, thank you, Liam. So when a vote comes live, you will see this green pulsing light. This means that you have an active ballot that you are eligible to vote on. So when that light comes on, I know that I have a ballot that I am able to vote. So in this case, this is just an example question. So does pineapple belong on pizza? If I select no, the correct answer, and press review vote, you are brought to this page. So you're quickly seeing your choice. So your selection here, your answer. And then if you're happy with that, you can press confirm. If for whichever reason you accidentally pressed yes at this point, you can always go back, edit, and review your vote by selecting your new or your preferred choice. So you confirm vote. Once you see this green box and the little check mark here, you know that your vote has been submitted or cast, and we've received it on our side. So when there's no questions available, you will see no active questions. Lastly, if an election comes up, the ballot may look like this, for instance. So we have a couple names here. And for example, you have to select between 1 and 2 candidates. In this case, you're able to select 1 to 2. If you select more than 2, you will not be able to review your vote or confirm it. So you will say, there will be a little indicator here saying, please select no more than 2 options. So if I review my selection with my 2 votes, I hit review. Again, I'm happy with my choices. I press confirm. I see my votes been submitted, and I know that it has been cast and we have received it on our side. So I know that was a lot of information very quickly. So I do appreciate very much you all having us here. I am just going to switch my screen share to include just a little bit of information for everyone here. So let me know if you're able to see that PowerPoint okay. And we'd love to do a quick couple minutes of Q&A if we still have time.
Thank you so much, Rowan. Yes, we do have a bit of time for some Q&A. Thank you for your very detailed walk through this platform and all that it's going to mean for us as we gather at Synod. Really grateful to you for the clarity and the detail. So we do have some time for some questions. In fact, I already see we have a hand up. But before I take any questions, just a reminder that if you do have a question, please raise your virtual hand. And you do that by going to the bottom of the screen where you'll see the icon that's labeled participants. At the bottom of the window, click the button labeled raise hand. And that's the same icon that you use to lower your hand when you want to do that. Once you've raised your hand, stay there. And when I call your name, you will receive a request to unmute your mic. And when you speak, and this is good practice for Synod in 5 weeks, please remember to state your name and your parish or ministry before you ask your question or make your comment. When you're finished, please mute yourself again and also remember to lower your virtual hand. So we have some virtual hands up already, and Stephen Hatz, we'll begin with you.
Thanks, Bishop Kevin. Rowan, thank you for that. Very quick question. You mentioned we can use a smartphone or laptop. Is there any kind of advantage in terms of functionality from one to the other if we have the options to do either?
Great question. So thank you very much for bringing that up. All and any device is supported within the platform. I recommend, truthfully, for getting used to it and maybe leading up, try looking at the platform on a laptop or tablet first, just so it's on a bigger screen. You can get a little bit used to how everything functions. And then during Synod, if you can bring a laptop, but it works very, very well on a phone as well. So kind of my recommendation would be for the first go around, if you can have a larger screen to look at, that's always recommended. And then as we get closer to Synod, if you are only available to bring a mobile device, then that's no worries as well. Thank you for that question.
Thanks, Rowan. James, and again, name and parish before your question.
James McMillan, St. Thomas's, Huron Street. Not really a question, but I wanted to point out that your website indicates that we're meeting in November at the Toronto Sheraton Parkway West. You may want to change that to North.
Thank you very much, James. I really appreciate that, and apologies for the miss. Thank you for the heads up there. Well, we'll make the change straight away. Quickly, the only other thing I want to mention is with this platform, the changes are made in real time. So if there is something that we need to quickly update, no one needs to refresh or change any information on their side. It'll automatically be populated on your device. So once we make any changes, there's nothing to do. It'll just be automatically there for all members to view.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. I don't see any other virtual hands up. So let me just take this opportunity, Rowan, to thank you and Liam and JP for your presentation today, and also for being with us at Synod in a few weeks' time. As Rowan has said, if you do have questions between now and then, you can use the platform to ask those questions in the various ways that Rowan set out, or you can contact Ajit Phillip in the Synod office, and Ajit would be happy to help you as well. So to the three of you, thank you, and look forward to seeing you at Synod in November. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here, and we're really looking forward to the Synod. Thank you all. Have a great morning.
Thank you. You too. We're now going to move ahead on our agenda, and I want to ask the Reverend Canon Lisa Newland, the Honorary Clerical Secretary of Synod, to offer our next presentation. So Canon Lisa, over to you.
Thank you, Bishop Kevin. Since our last regular session of Synod in November 2023, the diocese has been busy in conjunction with Synod Council. Synod Council's report to Synod covers activities from June 30th, 2023 to June 30th, 2025. The report can be found in Section B of your convening circular. During this time, we had a total of 17 meetings, one of those being in person, and 8 email polls. Today, I'd like to highlight a few items. Firstly, the Cast the Net working group completed their mandate, having council endorse the vision and calls for the diocese that they put forward after an extensive consultation process. This was approved in principle in February 2024 after an in-person meeting of Synod Council. The Cast the Net visioning team has been created and is now known as the Netminders. The final report was issued and accepted, and you will hear from the Netminders both at this meeting and at Synod. Secondly, the Area and Area Council Working Group continues its work and will present both here and at Synod. They began their work after the suspension of Canon 43 and 44. 3 options were presented to multiple stakeholder groups to gather further insight into changing the area structure. The suggestion is being made to ask for the resuspension of Canon 43 and 44 at Synod 2025 in the hopes of putting a pilot project in place for a trial period. And this will come to you in a motion at Synod. Finally, Synod Council continued to do its work between synods with the approval of grants offered through Cast and Learn, MAF, and Stretch grants. Council continued to work with human resources, finance, risk and governance, and property as those committees offer supportive ministry in the diocese. These are the highlights of Synod Council's work, but it is not the full scope of details. You can find more information in Section B of the convening circular. Synod will be asked to consider Synod Council's report to Synod as part of the consent agenda. Please be in touch with myself, Constance Kendall, or Laura Walton should you have any questions after today. And I will hand things back to you, Bishop Kevin.
Thank you so much, Ken and Lisa, for your report. And we do have an opportunity for some questions. If anybody does have a question, again, I think you know the drill already. Participants icon and then raise virtual hand, and then you'll be asked to unmute, and then you can go ahead and make your comment or ask your question. And we have a question. Constance, name and parish before your comment or question.
Yeah, Constance Kendall, St. Stephen's Downsview. And Bishop, I just wanted to say that I was on when you did the roll call, but I could not unmute. So I didn't have a question. I just wanted to let you know that I am present. Thank you.
Oh, grateful for that, Connie. Thank you. We knew you'd be with us, so grateful that you were there at the beginning, and thank you for letting us know now.
You're welcome.
Any questions for Lisa regarding her report? Okay, well, thank you again, Lisa. And not seeing any hands being raised, we will now continue on with the next item on the agenda. And that is the Netminders report that Lisa made reference to just a moment ago. So we're now going to move to the Reverend Pamela Raymond and the Reverend Johan Dempala.
Hi there. I'm Pamela Raymond, and I serve as Associate Rector at St. Clement's in Toronto and Regional Dean of the Eglinton Deanery. I also have the joy of being Chair of the Netminders, an incredibly talented group made up of laity, clergy, and diocesan staff, whom you'll get the chance to meet and connect with at Synod. The purpose of the netminders is to tend to the 20 calls produced by the diocesan-wide visioning process, Cast the Net. This visioning initiative began in 2022 through to 2024 and involved deep listening and consultation across the diocese. It resulted in an inspiring report and, of course, the 20 calls to the diocese. The 20 calls fall under 4 themes: renewing spirituality, inspiring faith in action, reimagining ministry, and transforming diocesan culture. At the center of these themes, and what connects any and all engagement in the calls, is the good news of Jesus Christ. The calls were adopted unanimously at Synod 2023 and have begun to be lived out across the diocese. In their 2025 pastoral letter to vestries, the College of Bishops talked about the season of spiritual renewal that is ongoing in the diocese and directly engages call number 1. It's been absolutely incredible to see this call being engaged in so many different ways through workshops, Lift Up Our Heart services, Bible studies, to name but a few. Our bishops also talked about the importance for congregations to review and consider all 20 calls and choose which 2 or 3 they'd intentionally like to engage with. The netminders are all about helping to encourage and foster this engagement with the 20 calls. And here is how this will come up at Synod. There will be elements of Cast the Net and the 20 calls woven throughout Synod. And through your consideration of the calls, you'll be able to start matching the various Synod presentations, booths, and even conversations with table mates to various calls. We hope that the calls become part of our diocesan common language for articulating ministry. More specifically, the 20 calls will be the focus of our breakout sessions late afternoon on Friday, November 7th. The calls have been grouped to form a total of 10 breakout rooms, where the goal is to foster conversation, share ideas, ask questions, and learn from one another about how to lean more deeply into the calls. To help us with that, we've pulled together experienced facilitators and support teams from across the diocese to guide discussion in creative and collaborative ways. Delegates are encouraged to select breakout rooms connected to the calls chosen by their parishes as areas of engagement. You can register for breakout sessions now through the diocesan website, toronto.anglican.ca. Under the About Us drop-down menu, 2025 Regular Synod is the first menu item, which brings you to this page. Click Register for Breakout Sessions, and you'll be directed to a page where you first indicate that you're attending Synod, after which you'll be moved to a page where you're given all of the information regarding the 10 breakout rooms. The information about each room was also shared in Synod newsletter number 5, which was emailed out on September 10th. While registration will remain open, we really appreciate you registering soon for a breakout room so that we have an idea of how many people will be attending each session. Now, maybe you're saying to yourself, we haven't chosen our calls yet. not to worry. We have some great resources to help you with that discernment. The Cast the Net discussion guide walks you through the process of reviewing and considering the 20 calls and narrowing it down to 2 or 3 to focus on. Deb Whalen from Congregational Development, who is also part of our Netminders group, has created a handy how-to video with tips on working your way through the guide. You can find these and other resources online, again at toronto.anglican.ca. Under the About Us drop-down menu, Cast the Net is the second menu item, and that brings you to this page. We are confident that in reviewing and considering the 20 calls, you're going to discover calls that deeply connect with ministries your parish is already engaged in. And that's a good thing. Connecting existing ministries to a specific call provides an opportunity for you to intentionally lean into this ministry more deeply. We're also confident that in reviewing and considering the 20 calls, you'll be inspired to explore new avenues of engagement. We know many of our parishes are already living the calls, and for that, we give great thanks to God. This is an invitation to explore how it fits within the network of the good news of Jesus Christ as we cast the net. We look forward to seeing you all at Synod, and please feel free to reach out with any questions or to share stories of your engagement with the calls thus far. We'd love to hear from you. My email is up on the screen. It is praymont@stclementsto.ca. Yes, that's praymont@stclementsto.ca. Thanks so much, and we'll see you at Synod.
Thank you so much for that wonderful video presentation. And we're blessed to have with us at the Pre-Synod meeting this morning, of course, the Reverend Pamela Raymond and the Reverend Johan Dempala on behalf of the Netminders. And we do have some time on our agenda this morning for some engagement with them. Questions, comments, any feedback. So a reminder, if you'd like to raise your virtual hand, go to participants and then raise virtual hand. After I call on you, please unmute your mic. Make sure your video is off, of course. State your name and parish, and then go ahead. And then at the end, make sure you lower your virtual hand and then turn off your audio and your video. So any questions or comments or engagement with Pamela and Johan? Carol, go ahead. Name and parish, and then go ahead.
Parish of North Essa in Ivy, actually. A question about selecting your breakout session. Is it the focus what you're working on or what you would like to work on in the next year?
So I think it's, you have more than one delegate at Synod. So one of the things that you can be thinking about is sort of looking at perhaps some calls that you are working on and some calls that you're hoping to work on. So really the choice is yours. you have the opportunity to engage in several different areas as a parish. So I would recommend getting together as delegates and deciding, strategically where you're going to engage, so that you can cover perhaps some of the things that you are working on, and then you'll gain some ideas on how to go more deeply into those calls, and then some of the areas that you're hoping to work on, and you can engage in those breakout sessions as well and get some more ideas and some support from across the diocese. So I think there's the opportunity for both. And if you haven't had a chance to think about where you're going, or the opposite, you feel like the calls that you're already working on you don't feel the necessity of engaging in the breakout room, it's completely up to you. So we want these breakout sessions to serve your needs as parishes.
Thank you. Other questions for Pamela or Johan? As Pamela said at the end of the video, there's always an opportunity to reach out with feedback or questions by emailing her at that wonderful email address, Prayment. I like that, Pamela. And of course, lots of time for engagement at Synod in a few weeks' time as well, if questions or feedback come up between now and then. But thank you to the two of you. I don't see any other hands up, so let me take this opportunity to thank both of you on behalf of the netminders for the work that you have done and are continuing to do to see that the 20 calls are being lived out in every corner of our diocese. We're grateful to you and to the other netminders for this important work. Thank you. We now have a chance to have our first break, to go and fill up your coffee or tea or whatever you have this morning. It is 9:23. So we're going to take a 10-minute break, and we will be back at 9:33. And we'll see you shortly. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you had an opportunity to have something to drink and stretch your legs as we now continue on with our pre-synod meeting. The next presentation is an overview of our upcoming meeting of Synod, again, in just about 5 weeks' time. And I'm going to turn things over to Canon Laura Walton, our Secretary of Synod, and we'll hear from Laura next. Laura, to you.
Thank you, Bishop Kevin. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for spending your Saturday morning with us. I hope you find the content helpful as we move into Synod. The agenda for Synod is found in Section A of the convening circular. Please note that we will have closed captioning available throughout Synod and work to make sure this gathering is accessible as possible. Our new platform will help ensure that all the information you need is at your fingertips. And for those who are not comfortable with an online presence, all documents will be available for you to print ahead of time. However, please note that you will need a smartphone, tablet, or computer to access the platform for voting purposes at Synod. If you do not have one, you need to let us know. We will begin Friday with registration at 8:30 and our opening Eucharist at 9:30, along with with Bishop Asbel's charge to Synod. When we are called to order, we will begin with another review of our new Synod platform, and the DOTS team will walk us through those details and do some test votes with us as well to help us all be up to speed and understand how the platform works. They will also be on site for further support should you have questions, difficulties with the platform or your device. Next up, Synod Council has approved the use of a consent agenda. This is a motion that will consolidate routine, straightforward, or previously discussed items into one agenda item. This will open time on the agenda for other pressing matters of Synod. You will find the consent agenda on the Synod website in Section A. If you want to remove something from the consent agenda, 4 lay members and 4 clerical members, for a total of 8 members of Synod, will have to make a request to Bishop Aspel to remove the particular item. The request must be in writing and be received by October 16th. Unfortunately, any requests received after this date, including at Synod itself, will not be considered. The Agenda Committee will allocate Synod time for any items removed from the consent agenda. This means those items will have their own debate and vote. We then move into the business of Synod. Please note that the notice of motion deadline is October 15th. We will have call and response moments, which used to be called missional and outreach moments. We will have 2 members' times and many presentations. We will have presentations from the Tithe Committee, Constitution and Canons, and the Area and Area Council Working Group. There will be a presentation of our priorities and plans and budget. The presentations here will all have motions attached to them. We will also hear about regional ministry, from our partner diocese of Brasilia, FaithWorks, and the Youth Ministry Apprenticeship Program, also known as YMAP. We will have elections for Synod Council and Provincial Synod. Those nominations are still open. Our netminders will be present and offer facilitated breakout sessions on the Friday afternoon. Please make sure to register for those so we know best how to set up the rooms for breakouts. While we're always busy with the business of Synod, we will also enjoy the social aspects of being together. Bishop Andrew will host a dinner on the Friday night that will highlight our guest speaker, our new primate, the Most Reverend Shane Parker. It will be a time to enjoy a meal together and hear about the work of General Synod. You will also be able to enjoy time talking and engaging with our many exhibitors and sponsors throughout the time we are at the Sheraton. Please make a point to visit the displays and learn about the many aspects of both the diocese and wider church. Please offer a thank you to our sponsors, because without them, our event costs would be much higher than they are. You will find our sponsor logos and websites on our new platform and on the Diocesan Synod website page. Please review your agenda and go through the convening circular. There will be some small amendments that will come to Synod Council in October, along with a supplementary convening circular that will have further information and reports. Make sure to use the platform so you know how it works. And please understand that the voting section is not yet open, but will be available closer to Synod. And I want to remind you again, if you do not have a smartphone, tablet, or computer, please let us know by October 8th so we can have one on site for you. I would also suggest that you bring your charging cords, power banks, and charge your devices to full capacity overnight before you arrive. We will have a charging station, random outlets in the plenary, and a table with power bars in the display area, but we want to make sure you're fully able to participate, especially when you're voting. If you have any questions or concerns after today's meeting, please reach out to myself or Ajith, and we will be happy to help. Thank you. Back to you, Bishop Kevin.
Thank you so much, Ken and Laura, for walking us through the agenda for Synod. I think this is particularly important for those who have never been to Synod before, and I think we do have some first-timers out there, but indeed it's helpful for all of us who are returning to Synod just to be reminded of how we meet and what the agenda looks like. So we do have some opportunity for engagement, questions, comments for Ken and Laura. Again, please raise your virtual hand. And then when I call on you, please unmute yourself, turn your camera on if it's been off, and then you can go ahead and name your name and your parish, and then off you go. So questions, comments for Ken and Laura? Wow, your presentation was so thorough that there aren't any questions yet. There may be questions between now and the beginning of Synod. And if there are, Ken and Laura has let you know how you could reach her at any time. So, okay. So let's move along in our agenda. Ken and Laura, thank you for the work that you have done and are doing and will continue to do to get us to Synod in a few weeks' time. I'd now like to turn things over to our Chancellor, Marg Creel, who's going to talk to us about the notices of motion. Chancellor, over to you.
Thank you very much, Bishop Kevin. The Secretary of Synod has informed me that there have been no notices of motion received as of September 13th, 2025. If you anticipate delivering a notice of motion, you must know that it should be in writing and delivered to Laura Walton, the Secretary of Synod. It is possible to do a notice of motion from the floor of Synod. However, the Chancellor's team urges you to do so in advance of Synod so we can undertake a thorough review on how other canons might be impacted unintentionally. Thank you.
Okay, questions for our Chancellor about the notices of motion? I've said this so many times that I don't need to say it again, but virtual hand and then unmute and off you go. So questions, comments, feedback. I'm relying on those who are helping to administer the page today to highlight any questions. Oh, we do have one, Matthew. Matthew, please go ahead and unmute, name and parish, and then go ahead.
Matthew Neugebauer, St. John's, Norway. Yeah, I see this probably online, but can we walk through the process of or giving a notice of motion, raising a motion? Ideally, yeah, we have what, 5 days left, so be good to walk through that. Thank you.
So a notice of motion in relation to something that you would like a vote on must be in writing. And it is helpful, as I said, for the Chancellor team to have an opportunity to look at it ahead of time. I can say that from time to time, inadvertently, we receive a notice of motion, which has an issue with it in terms of clarity or in terms of how it might impact other canons. And so it is best that it be made in advance if possible. I don't know if Bishop Kevin, if you have anything else to add.
I don't think so. I think that's a helpful clarification. There are questions for our Chancellor regarding the delivery of the notices of motion. Okay, well, as is the case with all of our speakers today, if you do have questions that arise in the coming days or weeks, please don't hesitate to reach out probably to Ken and Laura in this case, and the Chancellor will get that and can offer some clarification or respond to any of your questions before we arrive at Synod itself. Chancellor, thank you for the work that you do. It's often unseen, but it's really important work for us as a diocese, and we're grateful for your time on the call today, but also for the work that you do constantly and quietly, often behind the scenes, to make sure that we're doing things in the right way and in the right order. So thank you for your ministry.
Thank you for your comment, Bishop Kevin.
Okay, I think we are ready to move on to the next item on our agenda. And we are now going to hear from the Reverend Canon Jesse Parker and the Reverend Canon Rob Mitchell, who are the co-chairs of the working group and have just done a wonderful job over the last little while, and are here to talk about the area and area council update. This is going to come to the floor of Synod as well, and we will have the this will have us vote on motion number 4 that will look at the resuspension of Canon 43 and Canon 44. So Canon Rob and Canon Jesse, thank you for your work and thanks for being with us today. Over to you.
Somehow I think my thing has been disabled. I can't seem to share my. There we go. Okay. Is that working?
Not yet. Oh, there we are.
Okay.
We can see it now. Yeah.
Excellent. Jesse.
Very good. Well, good morning. Thank you very much, Bishop, and thank you to everyone. We're grateful to have this opportunity to present on the work of the Area and Area Councils Working Group. This committee, the AACWG, which even by church standards is an unwieldy acronym, was first formed in May of 2023. So we've been at this work for a while now. And our mandate was to look at the former Episcopal area structure, which included area bishops and area councils, and to juxtapose that with the new Episcopal leadership model, which features territorial archdeaconries, and to recommend changes based on those changes. Rob's going to take you through a bit of the history of the previous models of areas and area bishops.
So just a quick review. I mean, this might be news to some people and might be well known by others. We have two canons, Canon 43 and Canon 44. Canon 43 essentially states that the diocese will be divided up into areas and that the diocesan bishop will designate suffragan bishops to be area bishops. In recent years, we've had the areas of York Credit Valley, Trent Durham, York Scarborough, and York Simcoe. And each of those had its own area bishop. And this canon was suspended back in 2023 at our synod. The other canon in question here is Canon 44. And that canon states that each of the areas will have an area council. And the area councils acted in a variety of ways, including as advisory bodies for the area bishop. They would offer grants, they organized area events, and hired various staff like youth ministry coordinators and so on. And these area councils had an annual budget each of approximately $100,000 for a total of around $400,000. And this canon was also suspended at synod 2 years ago. As you probably remember, this model was changed quite significantly a couple of years ago. So back in 2022, there were 5 archdeaconries created, which are called East, West, Central, North, and South. And there are 4 archdeacons and 1 canon administrator who were appointed to serve in each of these 5. And the archdeaconries are made up of deaneries, either 3 or 4 deaneries that happen to be close to each other. Currently, Bishop Asbill oversees the Central Archdeaconry, Bishop Shaw oversees the North and the East Archdeaconries, and Bishop Robertson oversees the West and the South Archdeaconries.
So to sum up our work over the course of the last couple of years, we knew that we would have to consult broadly with various stakeholders throughout the diocese. And we did that over the course of many months, engaging primarily, that is to say, first with the former members of the area councils, but then on to other diocesan stakeholders. Especially, it became clear that we would have to engage members of the Bishop's Youth Ministry Committee, as the area councils had previously been highly involved with sponsorship and funding of youth ministry. And we wanted to assess a new consensus around models that would work for the diocese. We've got a rundown there of all of the people that we've consulted with. There's a decent chance that if you're on this call, you've heard from us at some point about these changes. And those changes are as follows, our recommendations following an extensive consultation. First, we recognize the very good work that area councils did under the previous system, but we are recommending at this time that the diocese not seek to replace these councils with another analogous structure, such as an archdeaconry council or a deanery council.
Our second recommendation is that each of the bishops be provided with a budget which would be available to fund parish-based ministry projects that do not meet the requirements of existing grants. One of the things that came out of our consultation about area councils was the importance of the area council grants, which sort of met a need that's not met elsewhere. And so we're proposing that each of the bishops have funds available that could be used to make these grants to parishes for things like website design, signs, live streaming equipment, and that sort of thing. Things that would have normally gone to area council, the bishops now would have the capacity to offer grants. The total amount of money we're suggesting is available for this is $54,000 per year, and this could be apportioned to each bishop on a relative basis. And in order to facilitate the administration of these grants, we are recommending that the regional deans work with parishes who are applying to ensure that their requests are aligned with the goals of these grants. And the regional deans would be sort of a hub where parishes would go to the regional dean and say, this is what I would like funding for, and we would assist them in making sure that that grant got through to the bishop for their approval. Our third recommendation is that the FaithWorks component, so as you may know, each of the area councils had a certain amount of funds that were from the FaithWorks pocket of money, and they were able to spend those funds on outreach-related type of ministries within their areas. And so we're suggesting that that money, which would have come from FaithWorks into the area councils, be simply put back into the overall FaithWorks budget and used as they deem fit.
Part of our desire when we undertook this work was to look for avenues of cooperation and collaboration consistent with the vision of Cast the Net. And so we are centering deaneries and their regional deans as vehicles for that collaboration and that cooperation across the diocese, viewing the diocese as a true network of connections between parishes and between individuals within those parishes. So our fourth recommendation here is to have a discretionary budget for regional deans of $2,000 per year to use at their discretion to foster collegiality among clergy and to promote ministry and collaboration within their deanery. Following on that, our next recommendation is to really look at the deaneries as the hubs or the engines of local collaborative ministry. So deaneries led by the regional dean, but in consultation with the clericus and other stakeholders within the deanery, both clergy and lay, will be asked to develop collaborative ministry plans and goals that suit the context of their deanery. Several deaneries throughout the diocese have, in the past, if not currently, had annual deanery meetings. That would be a wonderful way to have this conversation around collaboration and cooperation, perhaps to invite a guest speaker who might present on an issue of common interest that might be a good place for deanery parishes to work together. To have deanery-wide worship services, as several deaneries do and will continue to have deanery Christian education teams, as we have here in the Durham Northumberland deanery, comprised of clergy, but mostly, in our case, of lay faithful, to have conversations around faith formation and evangelization. And finally, we recommend the publication of devotionals. This is something that's happened in a couple of deaneries in our diocese. But really, the world's your oyster here. We want to see some collaborative work and some creative work so that deaneries can come together. And indeed, if there were deaneries that thought that a partnership between two deaneries was a sensible way to operate, they could certainly do that under this recommendation.
Our sixth recommendation is simply that the regional deans need a job description. As you can tell, there's quite a lot of changes being presented here that would affect regional deans, and we're suggesting that a clear job description be developed that could be used going forward in the future. The total costs of all of these recommendations would be $90,000 a year. And just as a point of comparison, as I pointed out at the beginning, the previous area council budget was, I think, $350,000 to $400,000 a year. So this is a reduction in some sense. And this includes $54,000, which would be designated as those Episcopal funds for grants, and then the $36,000, which would be the discretionary funding for regional deans. Next steps, following a period of implementation, which would begin in January, we recommend that this proposal be evaluated in the early spring of 2027 at a meeting of the bishops, archdeacons, canon administrator, and the regional deans. Those are meetings that actually take place on a regular basis. And the proposal would have had about a year and a half at that point to have been lived into, and there would be a chance to decide how it's going and what changes perhaps need to be made.
And then at the next regular session of Synod, we would ask Synod to consider striking Canons 43 and 44, those having to do with areas, area bishops, and area councils from the canons, and removing any other references to those canons in the other canons, and also recommending that Synod revise Canon 20 on regional deans to reflect a more robust job description.
So just in conclusion, we as the co-chairs of this working group submit these recommendations to the College of Bishops, and we are submitting them to Synod as well for your information. And we believe that they will be useful in fostering new forms of collaborative ministry within our diocese, and also allow some of the things that area councils were really good at, allow those to continue, such as granting smaller projects in parishes. And we thank you for your attention.
Jesse and Rob, thank you so much. As you have said, probably with some humility, you've been working away at this for a while, and you have indeed. I mean, you've been at this for the last few years now, and we're really grateful for the broad consultation that you have undertaken with stakeholders across the diocese. And I know you've come back to the College of Bishops table a couple of times as things have revised. And now that we see the presentation today, we are most grateful for the work that the two of you have done in leading us forward. And thanks for being able to have some engagement today with members of Synod as we prepare for Synod. So this is an opportunity. I see we've got hands up already. A reminder that if you want to offer a comment or ask a question, please raise your virtual hand. Wait for me to call upon you. State your name and parish, and then unmute, and away you go. So let's start with Stu Hutchison. Go ahead, Stu.
Thank you, Bishop. I wanted to raise...
Stu, what's your parish?
I'm sorry, St. Peter's, Arundel.
Thank you.
Wanted to raise a comment, I guess, or a question around the role of regional deans. I think in most, if not all cases, those priests are fully active in their own parishes, and this is an additional role that they take on at a minute amount of additional salary. I'm wondering if you thought about that in terms of how we should ask the regional deans to take on these new roles within the context of continuing on with their other deanery duties and their own parish duties.
Yeah, thank you, Stu. That is something that we've considered and indeed have heard from some of our colleagues. Both Rob and I act as regional deans, and we've had opportunities on a couple of occasions to consult with our fellow regional deans, and have heard from one or two of them that if being regional dean is going to be a heavier lift than it currently is, then perhaps somebody else is going to have to do that job. I say that to be absolutely candid about the fact that we are envisioning this being a heavier lift for regional deans than it currently is. But I also want to be very clear about the fact that regional deans are expected to collaborate and cooperate with their colleagues and their fellow ministers, both clergy and laity, within the deanery. So we're not thinking of making regional deans into little, miniature, well, I don't know what to say, but anyway, it's going to be a heavier lift for regional deans, but they're going to have a lot of help. We're looking to them to be the engines of that collaboration, the instigators of that collaboration, not to carry the whole thing on their shoulders. Is that fair, Rob?
Yeah, couldn't have said it better myself. That's exactly right.
Thank you. Thank you. Susan, I see your hand up next. Go ahead.
Bishop. My name is Reverend Susan Spicer. I'm the priest in charge of St. Luke the Evangelist in Peterborough and St. John's Ida. Really just a point of clarification. If I understand the presentation correctly, Rob and Jesse, you're saying that where there was a budget of about $300,000, which covered these areas of ministry, which seem to be important because they filter money down to the parish level in a very accessible and kind of grassroots way. But that budget is being reduced significantly to about $90,000. Is that correct? Do I have that right?
It's a little bit, not quite. You're not wrong, but so some of the funding that used to go to area councils, and maybe somebody else on this call might be able to even address this closer than I can, but that money has not disappeared. It's just being now administered through other channels. So, for example, the youth coordinators are being funded directly from the center of the diocese, as opposed to from the 4 different areas. I don't know what that total number looks like, but I don't believe it represents a significant, if it, maybe not at all, actually, in terms of overall spending on ministry. It's just the portion that's being sort of available to this new project is the $90,000. But somebody else maybe could speak more clearly about that than I can.
Thank you.
If I may just add to that, Rob, that I think it was the case on all 4 former area councils that the largest single expenditure was for youth ministry. In all of our budgets in 4 areas. So the fact that that's now been folded in and centralized at the diocese, just to underscore your point that money has not just disappeared, it's just appearing somewhere else as a centralized expenditure rather than a decentralized one in the old episcopal areas. Jeff, I saw your hand up and now it's down. Do you want to go ahead before I call upon Isaac? Did you have a question or a comment, Jeff Melbourne?
Thanks, Bishop. Jeff Melbourne from Grace Anglican Markham. But my question was also on the budget, which has now been addressed. So thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Isaac, I see your hand next. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. Isaac Mukasa from St. James the Apostle in Brampton. Would you please let us know again what kind of projects would be eligible for that 54,000 in a parish?
We tried not to put too fine a point on it, Isaac, but the basic vision of it is that these would be projects that previously would have been funded by area councils, for which there's no sort of obvious other stream of funding within the current diocesan funding structure. So we named several examples of things that might be funded under the new proposal. These would include things like grants for technology, for I'm having trouble finding it here. Oh, here we are. Capital projects, for example, things like website design, signage, live streaming equipment. And we've got a fairly wide range here when we say other parish initiatives and projects that do not meet the requirements of other existing grants.
There's several, and I think the first thing to do when you're looking for money is to go on the diocesan website and look at the available grants that already exist. And if your project doesn't, first of all, look at those. If your project doesn't fit in any of those categories, then that's when you would come and pursue this option of funding. But there is actually a pretty robust set of funds that are already available for several different forms of ministry and projects. This is to fill that maybe gap that might be left by the disappearing of the area councils.
Okay, thank you very much.
Are there any other questions or comments for Canon Jesse or Canon Rob? Okay, well, once again, our gratitude to both of you for the work you have done and continue to do to have us really move from one structure to the next. It's a journey, and your leadership is helping us to get from one to the next. And thank you for your time today and for your time at Synod in a few weeks' time as well. Pam, sorry, I didn't see your hand. Go ahead, Pam.
And I'm sorry because I was clapping when I was really trying to put up my hand. So Pam
That's okay.
Johnson, Holy Trinity, Trinity Square. A couple of things that I about this that I really like. I love the idea that there's some money that's going to be accessible for gap areas in the congregation. I did also wonder about kind of remuneration for added work for regional deans, and so I'm glad that Stu brought that up. I did want to say, sort of a bit contrary to what I just said about liking it, is I really appreciated when I first became a priest, having the regional dean, Greg Carpenter, I know he's here, was amazing in answering so many questions that I had and coming alongside me pastorally. And certainly now Jeff Sanguin also answers my questions. I just wouldn't want to take the pastoral sort of coming alongside priests in the area to have the administrative load take away from the time for our regional deans to support priests, particularly new priests.
That's very fair. I think I don't think that's the intention by any means. And part of it, so the $2,000 sort of discretionary budget that we're suggesting for regional deans, that could be used in all sorts of ways. And one of them might be actually taking you out for lunch and talking about what's going on in your parish, that sort of thing. So I think it is still envisioned to some degree as a pastoral. But that also speaks to the point that as far as I am aware, there's not really a very detailed job description for regional deans, and I think a lot of us kind of just make it up as we go along, and it's just based on our personalities and what we enjoy or are good at. And so having that really clearly stated somewhere, I think, will be useful so that we actually know what's expected of us, whether it's to be a pastor or something else to the clergy.
Thank you. Archdeacon John, I see your hand up as well. Go ahead.
Thank you for your presentation, Canon Rob and Canon Jesse. I think my question really is are you also taking into account, or a consideration has to be in terms of rethinking our deanery boundaries? So if you look at Euronia, where I'm the only incumbent of the 11 parishes here, which makes it a very lonely clericus, do we need to reevaluate the deanery models that we have in place?
That played into our thinking only in the sense that some of the feedback that we received from deaneries that are in more rural areas said it's difficult for us to envision collaboration when our parishes are often geographically quite far apart. So we don't think of ourselves necessarily as sharing a kind of center of gravity geographically. So that idea of collaboration, it wouldn't be as easy as, say even I in Port Hope here, where we have 3 Anglican parishes within the municipality of approximately 20,000 people. It's easy to envision, even in a slightly more far-flung corner of the diocese, that kind of collaboration. We did take that seriously, and that's why part of our recommendation was that collaboration could happen across deanery boundaries. So there are places that might be more naturally oriented toward one another in terms of geography, but the way that the deaneries are set up shows that there's a line that goes between them. We wouldn't want to tamp down or put a damper on any kind of collaboration and cooperation that might happen simply because of a relatively arbitrary boundary between deaneries. And I think there's enough flexibility in our proposal to allow for that to happen. As far as redrawing the boundaries of the deaneries, though Canon Mitchell is the diocesan cartographer, I've heard him described as that. That was beyond the mandate of our working group.
Yes, exactly. And but it has, as you probably know, it has happened. I mean, my deanery is called the Parkdale Toronto West Deanery, but it says two deaneries that actually amalgamated about maybe 10 or 15 years ago, and I know it's happened elsewhere as well. So that's, again, it's just wasn't part of what we were looking at specifically. But
Thank you. Thank you. I don't see any other virtual hands being raised. So once again, thanks to the two of you for your time today and for the level of engagement on the good work you've done. Thank you.
Thank you, Bishop. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
We are going to move on now to the next item on our agenda, which is our update on regional ministries. And we'll have a presentation by Canon Janet Marshall, who is our Director of Congregational Development. I want to note that while there is no motion attached to this conversation at our upcoming synod, there will be significant work done over the next 2 years as we look at not only how we do regionalization, but also how we enhance ministry when parishes change their structure or are beginning to change their structure. So Ken and Janet, grateful to have you with us today, and over to you.
Thank you so much, and good morning to everybody here. Yes, so we will be having a presentation at Synod and a brief time for questions there as well. So we thought it would be helpful to just do a bit of an introduction here so that you have in your minds what's been happening over the past little while with regional ministries. The regionalization of ministry, can I have the next slide? Thanks, is fast becoming a priority in this diocese. And the hope is to be able to find a new way, creative ways to create vital and sustainable ministries and missions in every corner of the diocese. We've stepped in over the past 4 years or so. We're learning a lot as we go, and there is much, much more to be done here. At the very beginning, I just want to express my deep appreciation to all of those who are actually in regionalizations, who are in these pilots, these new learning. And I know there are a number of you on this call this morning. So regionalization motivation is really, it's, as Bishop Andrew would say, it's both this and that. So on one hand, regionalizations are being created in order to, as I say, sustain ministry over a broader period, a broader area of geography, sustain ministries in small villages and towns, often in rural areas, but not always. They are motivated by the desire to be able to provide a consistent pastoral care, consistent sacramental care to these communities, and to be able to offer clergy full-time ministry positions. Which makes it easier. It's not always easy, but it makes it easier to find priests who are able and willing to serve in the more rural areas of our diocese. And it's good to remember, as Archbishop Colin Johnson used to tell us, Diocese of Toronto is the largest urban and the largest rural diocese in Canada. So we want to be able to offer ministry in all those areas. So that's the this. The that is the positive elements of regionalization, where we do want to have ministry in every corner of the diocese. And we look at some of our small villages and see that the church is often the last community space open and standing in those areas. We want to be able to explore new possibilities of ministry, to begin to think about a missional expression of ministry, being able to do more because we're stronger when we work together, when we see our ministry as over a bigger group of people, as volunteers, as clergy, working together in team. And this is a kind of dynamic between the kind of pressing issues that we're seeing regionalization as a way of dealing with those pressing issues, and also the opportunities that we want to be able to step into. Next slide, please. So we have 4 regionalizations right now that are really kind of formed and going. I'll just show you the 4. The first one here is the South Georgian Bay Regional Ministry, and this is the regional ministry that includes Collingwood and Wasaga Beach and Stayner and Creemore. So over in that sort of northwestern part of our diocese. We also have a regionalization around Barrie. So the South Central or Central Simcoe Regional Ministry, which is the congregations of St. Margaret and Trinity in Barrie, Craighurst and Midhurst, and Ivy and Utopia. So again, a kind of mixed grouping of congregations around Barrie. We have our largest regionalization, which is in Huronia, and you just heard from Archdeacon John Anderson about a little bit about that area. We actually have 8 congregations in this regional ministry, which is sort of centered in Orillia and moves west to include lots of points there. And then the one that I'll show you is the Rice Lake Regional Ministry, which is in our northeastern part of the diocese, and includes at this point 5 smaller churches in the northern and easternmost part of our diocese. These are our rural ministries, but we are also exploring and having conversations about regionalizations within cities, both urban and exurban as well. So at their best, regional ministries, the aspiration, the hope is that regional ministries are going to be expansive vision of ministry. Some of you are aware or have experience of mergers or amalgamations or absorptions. And one of the things we notice that when we amalgamate is that we tend to leave communities, neighborhoods behind. So that they kind of shrink into the area around the amalgamation. And it's very difficult to continue to understand that our parish concerns include all of the areas that were once part of the parishes that became part of the amalgamation. Whereas with regional ministry, we're hoping to flip that and say we're really going to pay attention to all of the areas involved. Regional ministries have multiple congregations or parishes involved in them. And one of the things that distinguishes regional ministries from, say, a multi-point is that regional ministries always have a leadership team. And it's a team of clergy and a team of lay people. And in this, we know that we're going to need to make investments in human resources in order to make sure that our regions have the leadership, the support, clergy, lay, professional support that they need in order to be able to function well. Regional ministries so far are always shaped for their context. I'm going to show you a couple of different models, but we're working out and we work with the congregations in the area to say, how will this best work for you? And as we move forward into this next couple of years, we're also going to be talking about how do we move forward, for example, not just with ministries, with how worship is shared, how programming is shared, but also how governance can be shared. Shaped into the context of what will work area by area. And regional ministries at their best have a shared vision for ministry and mission within their location. So visioning is an important part of becoming a regional ministry. Right now we have 2 models that are basically shaping up. One is a Minster model where we have a number of churches that are sort of centered around a stronger program church. And of all the ones that we've got right now, I would say, for example, the regional ministry in South Georgian Bay around Collingwood is sort of functioning more like that, where Collingwood is the stronger church, and they're actually offering support to the other churches. For example, they're offering treasurer support or Canon 24 support or programming support. So a program might be developed in one church and then taken to other churches and delivered in other churches as well. Or maybe the churches come together with some of the support from the stronger churches to develop programs in their own communities. The other model that we have that say something more like Central Simcoe or more about Rice Lake or Huronia is where we have churches who are all kind of working together with shared ministry and leadership and administration a bit, but there isn't really a kind of big church in the middle of it that is kind of sitting as the centerpiece. So we're trying both of these models, and others may develop as we go along. The really exciting thing about regionalized ministry, and we see this when we're looking at regionalized ministries in other parts of the world, in Wales or Britain, in other dioceses in Canada, and believe me, regionalization is a movement that is happening internationally in order to sustain ministry these days. So one of the things that we're really looking forward to and quite excited about is that regional ministries have the potential to actually offer lots of different styles and expression of ministry within their area. And this is sometimes called a mixed ecology of ministry. And this is really important for a few reasons. And one of them is that we know that churches grow these days. They grow by diversification, by offering a number of different things to people rather than the same thing all the way along. And we're already seeing this in some of our regionalizations. For example, in Barrie, there's a new Spanish-speaking congregation that's being offered. And so we're beginning to see that. And of course, when we're working together, if we're able to work together effectively, then we can do more together. Messy churches, theology by the glass in a local pub, those sorts of ministries. Okay. So that gives you a bit of a sense of what's going on. At Synod, we have some time on the agenda, and we're going to introduce you also to some of the work that's ahead, some of the challenges, some of the opportunities that we're going to be taking up over the next couple of years that will lead us into a deeper and richer expression of regional ministry, and also some of the understanding that this is going to take time, it's going to take energy, it's going to take financial resources, and it's going to take human resources to make these gel and begin to work in all the ways that we're hoping and praying that they will. We're also going to have people at our congregational development and mission table on site at Synod. So please come with your questions, come to have a conversation. We look forward to talking with you and hearing from you more about this important new initiative in the diocese.
Ken and Janet, thank you so much to you and to your team in congregational development for the work that you've been doing around regionalization, and for the update today as we head to Synod. We do have some time on the agenda this morning for some questions for Ken and Janet, or feedback or comments, engagement. And you know the drill by now. Please raise your virtual hand, and when I call on you, please unmute, state your name and parish, and then go ahead. And we have somebody already, Philip, Ken and Philip, go ahead.
I can unmute myself now. Oh, by the way, for raising hands, I find it's under reactions rather than participants. Maybe some of you already figured out. So my question, I'm so glad about this regional ministry.
Philip, could you please state your name and your parish as well?
Sorry.
Thank you.
Philip Durr from St. Christopher's in Richmond Hill. My question is, I'm excited about this idea about regional ministries. I'm just wondering who will be in charge of these ministries? Is it by regional dean, or who initiative ministry to oversee new initiatives? I'm wondering about that.
Yeah, that's a great question, Philip. One of the things that we've learned is that regional ministries need a lead priest. They need a team lead. And one of the challenges that we have moving forward is how do we resource a region so that that team lead actually has the time, energy, and energy to attend to the kind of the leadership of those new initiatives, the leadership of the living out of the vision, the organization, all of that. So one of the things we have learned and is now being put in place is that regional ministries have a lead priest who can take up that leadership role.
Thank you for the question, Philip. Molly, you're next. I see your hand. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Bishop. Janet, thank you so much for that excellent presentation. Oh, it's really inspiring to see these plans coming together.
Molly, what is your parish? Sorry to interrupt.
I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Molly Finley, St. John the Baptist, Norway.
Thank you.
I'm wondering, you mentioned urban and ex-urban regionalization as well, and I wonder if there's planning or conversation that's already happening around building ministry teams in program-sized churches in urban and ex-urban contexts to support parishes that might be struggling and might need support in those areas.
Yes, thank you, Molly. There is, and there are even some that are underway. So we have some conversations that are ongoing right now in Parkdale. Good old, Parkdale for there's all sorts of opportunities in Parkdale. And for those of you who know on this call, this is not a new conversation, but it is now taking shape and bearing fruit in a brand new way. We have a really interesting relationship developing between St. Paul Lamoureux and St. Michael the Archangel. So we are beginning to kind of step in urban ways, and we're thinking that, that there's an awful lot of potential in matching up, in partnering stronger churches with churches that have a definite mission and a vision, but need that extra bench strength.
Thanks for the great question, Molly. Michael, you're next. Go ahead and unmute and then name and parish, please.
Yes, my name is Michael Chino. I'm the Indigenous lay leader for St. John's Norway Anglican Church in Toronto, the Beaches. I wanted to find out what is the status of reconciliation in 2025 in the regional ministries.
That's a really interesting question, Michael, and it has not been something that we have been thinking about yet, but your question and comment puts it in mind, and I think it will be an important component as we look into how we express these ministries, what we do with our property, those sorts of things as we go ahead. So thank you, Michael.
Thanks, Michael. Jackie, you're next. I see your hand. You can go ahead and unmute and name and parish.
Yes, Jackie Dalfoss, Christchurch, Stouffville. Janet, thank you. That was excellent. My question is a springboard from Molly's question around urban and ex-urban. How do we define that? And forgive me if I've missed that. What's the definition of that? And then the second part, of my question is recognizing that there is a fair body of work that has to be done. How do we, and maybe it's deeper in there, define success? So what are some of those things that we, or maybe it's just, as we go, what's the definition of success for each of these ministries as we step forward?
Thank you, Jackie. Do you want to be on the regional ministry working group? Those are great questions. And I say that because actually the definitions of success, that was a big part of our last conversation, is to set out some of those objectives, because one of the things that can happen when you're in the middle of regionalization is we're hearing that, that there's so much work, there's so much complexity, that being able to say, well, these are the things you're aiming for, and when you get there, we're going to celebrate them, and we know we're on the way. So absolutely, definitions of success are very much on mind. The suburban ex-urban language is one that we've been using for a while, and I like to think about it as concentric circles. So we've got the very urban parts of Toronto, and then suburbia is the next concentric circle around Toronto, and then as we move into the 905, then more ex-urban. I'm not sure that there's an actual definition, but I tend to think about it as in terms of whether you get on TTC or a GO train or a GO bus, right?
Thank you for those great questions. Other comments or feedback for Ken and Janet around regionalization?
Bishop, I'm sorry to be so rude, but I can't make my hand emoji work, so.
That's okay. That sounds like Samantha. I can't see you, but I know that voice. Yeah.
Thank you.
Samantha, go ahead.
Samantha Caravan, All Saints Peterborough. I just have really some observations and perhaps a question about regionalized ministry. I understand that it has to fit a context and all those kinds of things, but it seems to me that we're focusing on a context that is still rather colonial. And if there is no conversation, or I haven't heard any conversation about how we're decolonizing these processes, because some of these churches have 6 people in them, and we're working at breakneck speed. And I mean, Brad can speak to this better than I, because he actually is in charge of one of those regionalizations. But how does that look like? We're still trying to use the same parochial model that we know is not sustainable. And how are we looking at those kinds of solutions, and what does that look like? And I echo Michael's question. It's entirely disappointing that reconciliation is not one of the first things we think about when we're talking about regionalization and moving into a more broad and open and encompassing ministry for our diocese.
Yeah, good and challenging comments and questions, Samantha. Once again, we're in a situation where it's this and that. Some of our congregations are very tiny, and they are not ready yet to imagine something different. And so the work that we're doing is trying to be respectful of that and challenging to that at the same time. And that takes time. And so we're very aware of that. And it's something that I think it's a challenge to the whole of the diocese as we look into this around what actually is, what is sustainable, but also what is a more, well, a different kind of way of imagining how and who we are together in a way that does actually speak health into what was a very colonial system that no longer, it doesn't just not make sense, it's just wrong in many ways. And so, it's going to take time, it's going to take conversation, it's going to take a lot of listening.
Thank you. Thank you for these good and challenging questions and insights. I'm just mindful of our time. I see we have 3 more hands up. And so in this order, we'll go John Dale Warburton, and then Stephen Kierkegaard, and then Kenneth Corsa. and then I think we'll move on with the agenda. Of course, as always, there are opportunities beyond this meeting to engage with any of the speakers and presenters today, either before Synod or during Synod. So please save, if you don't get a chance to ask your question now or make your comment, please save that and share it by email or in person when we gather in a few weeks' time. So, John, we'll begin with you. Name and parish, please.
Dale Warburton, St. Joseph of Nazareth, Bramalea. And I'm wondering, how does a regional ministry differ from a deanery or, say, a three-point parish approach?
Okay, so yeah, so regional ministries don't necessarily overlap with deanery boundaries. They can be different groupings. So at this point, that's the way that makes it different. And of course, a deanery doesn't have a shared ministry team that's working all of the parishes in the deanery, whereas a regional ministry will have a shared ministry team that's responsible for all of the ministries in the area. And that's the primary difference between a regional ministry and a multi-point. We're not really thinking about multi-points right now because multi-points usually mean that there's one priest looking after a bunch of churches. And what we're imagining here is multiple priests and multiple lay people looking after, or deacons, lay readers looking after an area. One of the regionalizations we look to a lot at right now is actually a regionalization in the Diocese of Ottawa, where they have 12 congregations and 4 priests. So that's a different way of thinking about it.
Thank you. Thank you. Stephen Kierkegaard, I don't see your hand up anymore, but you are next. Go ahead.
Stephen Kierkegaard, Holy Trinity Guildwood. I think Dale's question and Canon Janet's answer, and Canon Janet, thank you for your ministry to all of us, pretty well answered my point. It was more about the precipitating factors. So as I look at the relationship or evolution, transformation of the multi-point model into the regional ministry model, if I'm not overstating the case, it seems the precipitating factors have been best use of constrained or limited financial resources and or human resources. And I'm just still trying to better understand how the regional model will improve that. That's my question, or my observation, of which I'd love Janet to comment.
Yeah, good observation, because one of the challenges we have is we're often seeing regionalization as a way of holding it all together, making it work in difficult situations, and we need to shift more towards regionalizations is actually an exciting new way of doing ministry, where we're not isolated, but we're working collegially in team, and we're imagining different ways that we can work within each other's congregations and parishes. So there's a cultural challenge here that sits in front of us. And where we know already that if it's just about holding things together, with a little more duct tape and a little more glue, in order to make it all work, that actually isn't sustainable. It's very, very difficult on the backs of people who are trying to make this work. So I'm thrilled, actually, we're having this conversation here and into Synod and beyond, because this is a conversation the diocese needs to have about how we're imagining a different way of doing ministry together.
Thank you, Stephen. And Kenneth Corsa, over to you.
Thank you very much, Janet, for that information.
Kenneth, what parish do you serve?
So I'm with St. Joseph's of Toronto. We worship together with St. Matthias. So we are in Etobicoke on the Royal York Street. Yes, and I'm excited the mentioning of sustainability, and my question would have to do with currently all Toronto the dynamics, the color of Toronto or Canada is changing. And how would that fit into that particular context? Because for the future, we need to look at something that will work for the future, particularly the inclusion of the voices of the youth and young adults. Because if it will be sustainable, we need to look at the future and how have we included, or how do we intend to include the voices of the youth and young adult, especially as the color changes, as the color becomes more dynamic. My question is, how do we include their voices, or how have we included their voices for the future? Because if you want it to be sustainable, we need to be futuristic. And the trend is showing a particular dynamic here.
Right. Yes, I'll note two things, Kenneth. Thank you for that. One is that regional ministry needs to be born out of a shared vision for ministry and mission. And that shared ministry for ministry and mission is where those voices come in and are heard, and their ideas are able to take shape and form. And the second piece is in taking in shape and form, as I said before, the opportunity of regional ministry is to offer a wider and more diverse program of ministry, offering ministry across an area, so that we can begin to actually express and grow and live all of the different and richness of the diversity that we find in Toronto itself, but also more broadly throughout the diocese. So vision and diversity, I think, these are two of our values.
Simon Bell, I had said that Ken would be the last speaker, but I'm going to let you go ahead because I know you're very much involved in regionalization in your own context and in the diocese. So we'll give the last word to you. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Bishop, indeed. So we're hosting our regional Synod reps are here at St. Margaret's. And again, this is outworking what regional ministry looks like, is we can get together for these things and share resources. I want to answer two questions, actually. And one of them was Michael's questions, which is so important, but also the benefits of working regionally. So we facilitated a day together as a regional ministry around dealing with truth and reconciliation. We did that 2 years ago. We had a series of guest speakers come. We looked at the castanet calls to action within that conversation, and so out of that we've developed a broader conversation. So this last Truth and Reconciliation Sunday, for example, our parishes all hosted significant events and conversations around truth and reconciliation. So when we work together in that nature, some of our parishes may be less resourced, can actually participate in something that's much bigger for them. And so dealing with what sometimes may seem like a really big project can come far more doable when we find space to work together with each other, and particularly around those issues around social justice and the questions around truth and reconciliation, I think are key for us to have those conversations. But it also means that we can share resources. So, some of our more urban parishes like Trinity have more ready access to agencies that serve folk within the broader spaces in which we're in. And so again, we can share those resources between each other and find synergy. I loved Samantha's question. I think there is a question about how we decolonize who we are as churches. But within that conversation, we also want to honor where we've come from in some conversations together and get a sense of who we are. One of the big changes is that Trinity Barry is an urban parish, St. Margaret's is a suburban parish, and we have 4 rural parishes which are really dormitory towns to the city of Barry and the broader area. And so all those things are overlapping possibilities for us, but that also creates a greater sense of synergy, a greater sense of participation, but I think it also gives us a better view of what's going on. If you're from an urban parish and you're working with a rural parish, you get a sense of what those rural issues are. And in our own context, I think trying to deal with some of the politics around homelessness, for example, we're finding a synergy around those sorts of issues, people's access to resources, resources, creation care, all those bits and pieces come together rather neatly when we share them out between each other. And again, having a clergy and lay team who can facilitate that has really helped us deal with some of those bigger issues, which we might feel that we may not have the capacity to engage with by ourselves. And so I think it's a healthy way to go. Doesn't mean we've got it right, or but we're working at it. I think that's the key. And then trying to find ways of engaging ourselves as constructively as possible in where we are at present. But thank you, Janet, for your input and your conversation. I think it's hard when you're somebody in the diocesan office and you may not know the smaller nuts and bolts of things that we're doing on the ground. But we do appreciate the big picture stuff that the diocese is holding for us. But thank you.
And Simon, I'm glad the last word went to you because you're so involved in regionalized ministry and grateful for the insights that you're able to provide for us today. Ken and Janet, thank you. Thank you for the ministry that you undertake with your staff and with our amazing team of congregational development volunteers across the diocese who are involved in regionalization. And grateful to all of you for this really creative work that we're doing together and that you're leading on our behalf. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Folks, we are now heading into our second scheduled break. And I have 10:45, and so we will take a 10-minute break, and we will be back at 10:55 sharp. And as we come back together at 10:55, we'll be brought back into our pre-synod meeting with a lovely musical reflection by folks at St. James Cathedral. So see you all in 10 minutes.
Steadfast love, my deep and boundless peace. To this I hold, my hope is only Jesus. For my life is wholly bound to His. Oh, how strange and divine, I can sing all is mine, yet not I, but through Christ in me. The night is dark, but I am not forsaken, for by my side the Savior, He will stay. I labor on in weakness and rejoicing, for in my need His power is displayed. To this I hold, my shepherd will defend me through the deep.
Beautiful music. Well, welcome back, everybody. Glad to see you. My name is Bishop Priscilla, and I am also a suffragan bishop here in the Diocese of Toronto. And I'm grateful to Bishop Kevin for hosting the first part of our pre-synod meeting. It has gone super dynamically. Hopefully the second part will too. I'm going to continue. We're going to hear from our Reconciliation Land Tithe Committee. This presentation will bring motion number 2 to the floor following the presentation at Synod, and I will read it for you. It is moved and seconded that, whereas the Diocese of Toronto is committed to upholding our sacred obligations to reconciliation, we commit to a continuation of the Reconciliation Land Tithe through Synod 2027. With the oversight of the Reconciliation Land Tithe Committee and the Synod Council, we will continue to commit the balance of the MAF tithe on a rolling basis for the purpose of Indigenous-led initiatives. The extension of Motion 12 from 2021 from 2026 forward to 2027 will support Synod Council and the Reconciliation Land Tithe Committee that in 2027, a new motion may be presented that embeds permanent funding for reconciliation with Indigenous peoples into the life of our church. That is how motion number 2 reads. I'd like to welcome the Reverend Samantha Caravan and the Reverend Lee Kern to give their presentation.
Good morning once again. It's a real privilege to be here. So on behalf of the Land Reconciliation Tithing Committee, thank you for this opportunity. And I also want to thank the committee members, Bishop Shaw, who supports us, and Lee Kern, who is the diocesan staff support person for this committee. It's a lot of hard work, and there's a lot of people behind the scenes. I just get to be, the front man or front person, front human. So here we are. Our next slide shows us some information that you may need, because some of the information in this presentation may be triggering for some people, especially around the legacy of ongoing genocide, the legacy of residential schools, and land dispossession. So if you require immediate support, or even if you don't think you require it now, please take down these numbers so that when you do require it, you have access to this information. So you can contact one of the following: the Residential School Survivors Society. It has a 24/7 crisis support hotline at 1-800-721-0066, or the 24-hour National Indian Residential School Crisis Line at 1-866-925-4419. If you need more information, please feel free to contact Lee Kern, and Lee's email is there on the screen. Lee is the chair of the Right Relations Committee, and she's the coordinator of that. So please email Lee if you need any information. And if you haven't written that down, it's on the website. Our next slide talks about how grateful we are, because we begin to recognize with gratitude and respect the Indigenous elders and leaders who have called the church to reckon with our history and our present, and to be transformed for the spiritual liberation of ourselves and for all of the land. We recognize our recipients of the land tithing funding for the work of healing and revitalization that they do within their Indigenous communities. So at Synod 2021, the Reconciliation Land Tithe was passed. It used to be called the Ministry Allocation Funding Tithing Committee, which didn't actually tell us what it was about. It's been renamed to the Reconciliation Land Tithing Committee, and it was passed and formed for 5 years. So when that happened, Bishop Asbill said this: "This motion is born out of what many feel is the stirring of the Holy Spirit in our church, a call to tithe to Indigenous communities 10% of funds from the sale of diocesan real estate. An ongoing commitment to the 10% tithe from the MAF would be a tangible step towards restoring the treaty relationship between the diocese and Indigenous peoples. End quote. So since 2021, the Indigenous-led Reconciliation Land Tithing Committee has worked with local Indigenous leaders to engage in dialogue and open invitations to apply for funding. It's all on the website. If you're interested in looking at what that might look like, you can find it there on the diocesan website. So our committee seeks to build relationships with applicants and are guided by principles of holistic restitution outlined by the Special Interlocutor for Missing Children and Unmarked Burial Associations with Residential Schools. The Reconciliation Land Tithing Committee is an Indigenous-led oversight body. We receive and review applications and make recommendations for approval to the College of Bishops and then on to Synod Council. And in 2024, we redistributed $100,000 to Indigenous nations, collectives, including First Nations within the diocesan boundaries, and Two-Spirit-led care for houseless or homeless residential school survivors. And those are just two of the examples. Our financial figures will be updated before Synod in November, but at this point, we project at least another $150,000 will be redistributed to Indigenous nations and organizations, including multiple First Nations who are leading search and recovery work on unmarked burial sites on the grounds of former residential schools. I want to remind you that the last residential school closed as recently as 1996. So in our next slide, we can see an image of a tree and its roots. And you can see the values that we are grounded in and the visions that we are reaching towards. So the Diocese of Toronto recognizes the profound harm to Indigenous nations and communities through the Church's participation in colonialism. The Reconciliation Land Tithe granting body is committed to providing redress and restitution to the ongoing legacy of Christian colonialism. So our vast land holdings came through privilege that settlers and the Anglican Church asserted through free land grants, and the clergy reserve system, which granted the Anglican Church 1/7 of all Crown land in Southern Ontario, ignoring and usurping Indigenous sovereignty and the claiming of dominion over Indigenous territories by English military bodies backed by theologies such as the doctrine of discovery. We are wholly committed to meaningfully addressing the historic privilege and the imbalance of power by developing relational responsibilities and practices within Indigenous communities, nations, and others, so that our church might be transformed and bear its fruit with worthy repentance. You know, the work of restitution and redistribution of wealth held by the diocese is not only about reckoning with our role in colonialism and displacement of Indigenous people, but it also informs us of a pathway to a much more just future. The principles for a new relationship and a path for restitution are outlined extensively in the reports created by Indigenous peoples, including the 94 calls to action of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. The Reconciliation Land Tithing is a practical expression of restitution for land dispossession and redistribution of wealth. But it's also an expression of a deeper movement for recognizing Indigenous sovereignty and repudiating the doctrine of discovery, which our church, locally or nationally, has not done yet. The theology and ethical reflections of our history on this land, our relationship with Indigenous nations as a church, and restoring our treaty relationships can provide a new vision for the relationship between the Diocese of Toronto and Indigenous nations and communities. We hope to invest in an equitable future where we live into our sacred responsibilities as treaty peoples. Our next slide is a visual walkthrough of the journey of the reconciliation land tithing. So you can see here, there's a little map here. In November 2021, Synod passed Motion 12, the reconciliation land tithe for a period from 2021 to 2026. In 2022 to 2023, the terms of reference for the committee were defined, a chair was selected, that's me, and the Indigenous Oversight Committee, which consists of Indigenous peoples, including Anglicans, as well as peoples and leaders who are not part of the church, where it was formed. And together, we called together to create the framework for a funding application. So through relationship building and outreach, the RLT committee welcomed applicants and grant applicants. So in 2024 and 25, we presented to the College of Bishops, and then Synod Council approved and distributed funds to successful applicants for the First Nations and Indigenous-led initiatives. And the application is updated based on Indigenous consultation. And so there's a new or updated application that you can have a look at on the diocesan website. Applicants, including Indigenous not-for-profits, Indigenous nations, organizations, and insured collaboratives, must be Indigenous within the boundaries of Canada, and they are all Indigenous-led. In November of 2025, when we get to Synod, we want to offer a motion to extend this RLT for 1 year so that we can continue to work and have no interruption of work, and that when we get to Synod of 2027, we'll have examples from other churches and ideas of what a permanent motion for funding might look like. And we are going to have an expansive report available at our booth at Synod, so you can have a look at that. The next slide shows us and asks us about our reconciliation land tithe, and the College of Bishops is for Synod to approve the extension of the reconciliation land tithing for 1 year. This year will allow us to continue, as I've said, to uninterrupted granting and relationship building and fund distribution and wealth redistribution leading up to Synod 2027. The sacred obligations of the 94 calls of action of Truth and Reconciliation Committee call for permanent funding from churches, both individual dioceses and national bodies, to support healing from the legacy of residential schools and Christian colonialism. By extending the RLT for 1 year, the committee may then be able to continue to redistribute funds set aside by the Ministry Allocation Fund tithe, 10% of the net sales of diocesan held property, to Indigenous nations and communities, while engaging in consultation and the development of a motion for Synod 2027. The creation of the motion for 2027 will be rooted in consultation across the diocese with you and with Indigenous leaders towards a permanent expression of this life-giving and really just turning point in our Christian history as a diocese. Our hope is that the Anglican Diocese of Toronto might honor our obligations to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and Indigenous peoples by embedding restitutional funding for transformational healing into our diocesan structure, into the heart of who we are as followers of Jesus the Christ. On this Indigenous land we stand. So our next slide is once again the motion that will be brought to the Synod floor in November. And it reads, as Bishop Priscilla has already read it, but I'll give it to you a second time. It is moved and seconded that, whereas the Diocese of Toronto is committed to upholding our sacred obligations to reconciliation, we commit to a continuation of the reconciliation land tithe through Synod 2027, with an oversight of the Reconciliation Land Tithing Committee and Synod Council. We will continue to commit the balance of the MAF tithe on a rolling basis for the purpose of Indigenous-led initiatives. The extension of Motion 12 from 2021, from 2026 forward to 2027, will support Synod Council and the Reconciliation Land Tithing Committee that in 2027, a new motion may be presented that embeds permanent funding for reconciliation with Indigenous peoples into the life of our church. And our last slide is really a thank you to you for your care and consideration of this motion, of the committee that has put it together. And a more detailed presentation will be available at Synod 2025, and we'll have a booth, so please do come by and see us and ask anything you like. In the meantime, right now, we invite your questions and comments.
Thank you very much, Samantha.
I know that's a lot of information.
Wonderful and important presentation. I really appreciate it. And I know that a lot of care and consideration has gone into the articulation of the presentation, as well as the work that takes place on a regular basis. So I thank you for that. I recognize that we have a few hands up. So just a quick reminder, if you have a question, please raise your virtual hand. Once we call upon you, please state your name and your parish, and then go ahead with your question. Thank you. So at this time, I'd like to call upon Michael. Hi, Michael.
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Please state your name and your church. Thanks.
My name is Michael Chena. I'm the Indigenous lay leader for the St. John's Norway Anglican Church in the Beaches. I don't know if this is a question, but the doctrine of discovery is a spiritual, political, and legal justification for colonization and seizure of land not inhabited by Christians. The doctrine of discovery continues to impact Indigenous peoples throughout the world. Truth, justice, and reconciliation dialogue is a journey of healing and commitment to restoring relationships with Indigenous people. Miigwech.
Miigwech, Michael. Thank you.
Michael, thank you for that. I am always still amazed at how many people I encounter that don't know what the doctrine of discovery is and the damage it continues to offer. So thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing that. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Molly.
Thank you, Bishop. Molly Finley from St. John the Baptist, Norway. Sorry for all the comments from our little parish church. I know we're not in Synod right now, but thank you to Samantha and Lee for your hard work on this. And I, for one, am very supportive of this motion. I would also ask if in the motion, which I do hope this funding would be made permanent, there can be some funding set aside for the raising up of Indigenous clergy, deacons and priests. And I think it would really be good for us as a diocese to explore non-colonial pathways for raising up new Indigenous clergy. So I'm thinking of this, the Peter Stream in the Diocese of London, something like that, because to send our Indigenous leaders into a traditional seminary would be like a return to residential school, in my opinion. So I think I would love to see some of this funding being earmarked for, a search committee for potential future Indigenous clergy, and that would be a great gift to our diocese. Thank you so much for all your work on this.
Molly,
Thanks, Molly.
thank you. Thank you so much for that. That is so important. So I have noted your name and what you've just said. And as we move past this synod, because in this synod, we cannot change the motion that is before us, we can only extend it by a year. But as we bring a permanent motion, or as that's our hope and goal and prayer, to 2027, we certainly will have more conversations with you and others about this particular piece of that. So thank you for bringing that to the floor.
Thank you. I see Philip has his hand up.
Yes, Philip Durr from St. Christopher's. My question is about the tithing. I'm glad that we do that. Just wondering, the tithing is referring to the new sale or the existing MAF funding?
You know what? That is a fantastic question. And one that, in fact, I've never really got a clear answer to. So perhaps Ajit could answer that better, or Varun. But certainly it's currently on a rolling scale of what is in the MAF fund, and it is affected certainly by the new sale of properties. So if a new sale happens, now I don't know what the rolling fund schedule is, but I suspect it's the same 3-year schedule we use for everything, you know, allotments and all the other kind of financial things we do. So if you sold something in, you know, yesterday, it's not going to necessarily show up in the 10% allotment for 3 years. But those are some of the things that have to be sorted out as we bring a new permanent motion to Synod about just what is that tithe and where is it coming from and what does it entail. So thank you for that. And it is a point of clarification that we are working on.
Thank you very much for that, Samantha. I'd like to invite Lee to jump in at this point, as Lee is a member of the committee and may have something to offer either in response to that previous question or to another part of the presentation. And then we will get back to the lineup with John and James. Thank you. Lee, over to you.
Thank you. So my video cut out for a minute there, so I missed part of Reverend Samantha's answer. So feel free to ask a follow-up question, anybody, or chime in. But basically, so since the motion was passed in 2021, from 2021 forward, every time a piece of diocesan held real estate was sold, 10% of the net sale. So that means after all the taxes and any realtor fees, any fees associated with sale have been made, then 10% of that net profit is put into the MAF 10% tithing committee. And so that 10% from a net sale since 2021 doesn't need to be spent within the year that it is placed into the tithe pot of money in the MAF fund. So it's on a rolling basis. So since 2021, all sales, 10% of the net profit went into this fund, and then we are able to access it annually. And we have a cycle of 2 cycles of funding in throughout the year. So it's 10% from the net profit, and since 2021. So any property sold since then goes into the MAF fund. So I hope that answers your question about the specificity. And so for going forward, this is a question, not for this synod, but maybe for next synod and through our consultation process, is that there's different models of doing this restitution funding. We're called upon as a diocese, and we signed on to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission calls to action. So we have an obligation. We've said we will do this, and instilling permanent funding for Indigenous-led reparations and healing and empowerment is part of this obligation. But whether that comes from land sales or whether that is, you know, a percentage of our budget as a diocese annually, are different models of how this could be done as a permanent basis. So again, this is conversations and dialogues that will start at this synod, but really our hope is to extend this motion so we can have fulsome conversations about what a permanent embedding of restitution would look like for our particular diocesan context.
Thank you very much, Lee, for that clarification. I hope that helps for the whole group gathered today, and especially Philip. Thank you for asking that question. John.
Good morning and thank you. I'm John Monahan from St. John's, Norway in the Beaches, and this was not pre-planned with either Molly or Michael, just a coincidence. But I want to echo everything that they've said and others have said, and I want to really applaud the work of your committee, Samantha, and your presentation of it as well this morning. It was really a blessing. I'm really moved by the word restitution because it is missing its companion in practice, in my opinion, and that is redistribution. So I think restitution is the minimum, just as a tithe already belongs to God, that 10%, or we're using that metaphorically here, but I am wondering if built into the vision for moving forward to Synod 2027, there could be more of a consideration and focus beyond restitution to incorporate the concept of redistribution and to think about what sacrificial giving over and above mere restitution we could contemplate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. Much appreciated. I see James has his hand up and Jackie has her hand up.
I've been debating whether to say this because I've said it to the diocese before. And while I completely support this concept, there's one thing that is absolutely a burr under my saddle. Why, in the year 2025, are we selling land? Now, there's only two possible explanations that I can think of. One is we're going out of business. I devoutly hope that that is not the case. The other is that we think that if the church should someday begin to expand its membership, and I always say you should allow for the risk of success, we think we're going to be able to buy the land back. That has been proven in this diocese and elsewhere over the last 50 years to be a fantasy. Now, distribution.
Sorry to interrupt, James. I'm afraid you didn't give your name and
I
church.
beg your
May you
pardon. My
please do
name is
that?
James Macmillan. I am from St. Thomas's Church on Huron Street, and I was part of, I think, the 6th commission on the Parkdale Deanery.
Thank you.
Now, there are a lot of ways to get money out of land if it's needed. And there are a lot of ways that we can raise money to fulfill this obligation. But rule number one, you do not, under any circumstances, sell the freehold because you're never going to get it back. The obvious
James, I appreciate your comments. I really thank you very much for sharing that forward, and I anticipate there will be another opportunity for you to do so going forward. I'm conscious of the time and of a few other people who have put their hand up. So I appreciate, James, your comments. May we move along to Jackie? And if you could state your name and your church. Thank you.
Good morning, Jackie Delphos, Christchurch, Stouffville. It's really just a curious question around the 10%, and maybe it's stuck in the audit somewhere, but how did we land on the 10%? And if this is not the forum, by all means redirect, but I'm just curious how we landed on 10%. It's just a random number.
Thank you. Okay, thanks for your question, and we'll work to get the answer.
Lee will.
Let's have Lee. Yeah.
Thank you.
So the reason that we started with this framework is because the diocese already had a financial model for charitable giving of 10% from the net sale of land. So every time a property was sold previously in years previous, for many, many years, going back quite a ways, 10% of that net sale went into the MAF land, not land tithe, but into the MAF tithe.
Oh, nice.
So for example, when there was a crisis, if there was fires happening or a hurricane somewhere and Anglicans felt stirred by the Holy Spirit to give a generous gift, then from that fund, they could easily redistribute. And redistribution is part of what we do and what we talk about every time we gather. We could redistribute that money very quickly. So we already had this on our books. And so what has happened through this motion was that tithe being dedicated to Indigenous-led initiatives. So we already had a financial structure. So it was very easy for us to step into that and take over the oversight of that tithe. But for example, from that tithe, the diocese has already given $1 million since about 2015 that were to Indigenous led initiatives. So we do have a history of this, and the land tithe took on this initiative with a new focus and a new mandate from 2021 to 2026. So I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see Bishop Patrick has his hand up. May you please introduce your name and your parish and go ahead with your question.
Well, good morning. Hi, and thanks for taking my question. Patrick White. I attend St. John's York Mills. I'm not here representing them, but that's the church I'm attending now. I get moved all over the place, but that's where I am now. That's my home parish. So anyway, thank you for taking my my question or my observation in that going back to Samantha's presentation, which was just I was so impressed and grateful for. But in the course of it, she mentioned that the doctrine of discovery had not been repudiated either by the diocese or by the the Anglican Church of Canada. And I'm just wondering where we're at with that. I mean, when I first discovered the doctrine of discovery, I was rather appalled and grateful for the video that was at that time, at least on the National Church website. I don't know if it's still there. But nevertheless, I just wondering if there's any, are there any moves in this direction to repudiate it officially, or are we just sort of saying, well, that was then, this is now?
I believe,
Thank you.
Reverend Samantha was saying that, you know, repudiating it fully means getting it out of our fabric, out of our canons and constitution, out of how we understand and relate to land, decolonizing our theology. So I believe Reverend Samantha was referring to kind of the big picture that we have not fully decolonized, right? We're still part of a colonial model, part of a colonial system and country and governance. And this is a call upon all of us to decolonize. But actually we did on paper formally repudiate the doctrine of discovery at General Synod 2010. And so that was done at our national church, and the Strong Hearts, Stolen Lands documentary by the late Reverend Canadian Doctor is a beautiful example of how they work to take that repudiation and put it into a tool that is, you know, so powerful. But to Reverend Samantha's point, this is still a theology that underpins so much of how we relate to land in the church and as Christians. So repudiating it fully is the work of decolonization and restitution that we are all called to that deeper transformation.
Thank you, Lee. So I would like to take this time to thank everybody who has their hands up at this point. May you please email your question in to me or to the diocese, and we will get an answer for you. Unfortunately, we're out of time at this point in this format, but there will be members' time at Synod and also other opportunities to raise questions around that. Also, questions can come forward at Synod Council at any point to discuss all of these items. And so we're super grateful for your engagement. It has been really important. It's a very important subject. I'd like to move along and ask Chancellor Marg Creel to speak again, as she will be going through some housekeeping changes along with canon resuspensions on constitutions and canons. Chancellor Marg.
Thank you very much, Bishop Priscilla. The Constitution and Canons Committee considers amendments or revisions to the Constitution and Canons of the Diocese as they arise. We report on how best to revise and incorporate these requirements into the Constitution and canons. The committee submitted its report to Synod Council on September 13th, 2025. The changes briefly discussed here today were recommended to Synod for approval by the Synod Council and are included in Section E of the convening circular. A further report will be made to Synod Council at its October 23rd meeting of any additional changes that may need to be made. That information will be available in a supplementary convening circular. Bishop, with your permission, I will explain the outline of the proposed changes to the Constitution and canons, and I'll take questions at the end.
Sounds good. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Okay, so you can find the changes that we're considering in Section E of the convening circular. You will see that there are 6 housekeeping changes, with another one being added in our next report. These are very straightforward changes that should not be controversial, so I will not read them. Making housekeeping changes is our way of making sure language is consistent and any typos or grammatical errors are cleaned up. There will also be a proposal to resuspend Canon 43 and 44 at Synod, as the Area and Area Council Working Group, who you have heard from today, we're going to continue to work on their next steps. As mentioned earlier, motion 4 will say it will be moved and seconded that Synod approve the resuspension of Canons 43 and 44 until the next regular session of Synod, as they relate to areas and area councils, as recommended for approval by Synod Council and presented in the convening circular. There are no other motions at this time other than those you've heard about with other presentations. Bishop, back to you.
Great. Thank you very much, Chancellor. Does anybody have any questions for the Chancellor at this point about the changes to the Constitution and canons? I see a hand. May you please state your name and your parish and then your question. Thank you, Allison.
Sure. Hi, my name is Allison Lemire and I'm at St. Matthew's, Oshawa. So the question just is sort of more general in terms of, I guess, Constitution and canon change. So I guess my first thing is there somewhere in just even to better understand how our church is run, is there some sort of like little visual pictograph like explaining the different things? So you have the dean, the bishops, the archbishop. So I have like a general understanding, but I'm just wondering, even as we try to bring in like youth and stuff like that for them to understand, I think it would be helpful just to have like not a deep discussion, but maybe, as I said, a little pictures, just to sort of understand the system. So therefore, when even changes are being made, I think you sort of understand what is impacted. So I don't know if I'm really sort of in the right area, but please forgive me because I'm not so up on these things. And then one other question, even in terms of the ability to make changes, we live in a world that is just rapidly changing. And I understand maybe there are legalities to being able to do things, but I think as churches, we need to be able to perhaps respond swiftly to things. Is there something that can be done for the Constitution where in matters that are relatively minor, it allows you all to respond to something in the now rather than to have to wait, well, a year or 2 years down the line? I just think that's just a thought, just something that maybe you all can do legally. That's a one-line change that allows you to be more responsive. Because I mean, even in the global world, what happened in January does not apply in March. And I don't think we can move at glacial pace to be able to change things and just, give you guys some leeway. Thank you.
Okay, Allison, thank you so much for that. I'd just like to draw your attention to there's a parish leaders manual, which is available on our diocesan website. And in that parish leaders manual, there is a structural explanation. That being said, a pictograph is a great idea. So we'll take that into consideration and get some folks working on that. Thank you very much. Really appreciate that. And those are some interesting and good observations. And we're grateful for you bringing that to our attention. Thank you. Are there any other questions at this time for Chancellor Mark? I'm not seeing any. So I would like to move along to priorities and plans, 2025 to 2027. And I would like to call on Varun Balendra, our Executive Director, and our Senior Accountant, Rebecca Scott, who will help with this presentation. You'll find the information you need in section D of the convening circular. Let's listen now. Varun and our Interim Director of Finance, Stuart Hutchison, will take your questions following.
Good day, members of Synod. As Executive Director, I'm pleased to share our priorities and plans for 2026-2027, guided by a cast the net vision. This will be followed by a presentation on the operating budget for 2026 and 2027 by a senior accountant. The cast the net visioning process has given us the time to listen, discern, pray, and wait for the inspiration of the Holy Spirit. Like the disciples in John 21, we are casting our nets on the right side of the boat and finding abundance through Jesus' call. Our vision includes 20 calls that guide us through 4 areas of mission and ministry: renewing spirituality, inspiring faith in action, reimagining ministry, and transforming diocesan culture. The season of spiritual renewal calls us to pray, study, and grow in our faith. The season comes to its natural close at the end of Epiphany in 2026. We will discern together what comes next and how we will continue to support initiatives and a collective call to discipleship. Youth and children's ministry will continue to be important foci over the next 2 years, and we will continue to tell the good story through our various communication channels. We will continue to advocate at all levels of government for affordable housing and an end to homelessness. We will continue to advocate for adequate income supports, wages, and working conditions that enable people to meet their basic needs and uphold human dignity. By Synod 2027, at least one advocacy workshop will have been held in every archdeaconry to equip Anglicans to write and visit the elected representative. At least 65% of parishes will engage with the social justice vestry motion at their vestries. At least 35% of parishes will have engaged with government in some form of advocacy on issues of property and/or affordable housing. At least 25% of parishes will be involved in refugee sponsorship. We will support and challenge the diocese to address the climate crisis through education, prayer, liturgy, advocacy, and action, in partnership with the wider church. By Synod 2027, at least 50% of parishes will have enrolled in energy audit benchmarking programs. The volunteer corps will include property consultants to advise parishes on energy conservation, retrofits, and moving toward zero-emission energy sources. We will have developed a theological framework for property decisions and a creation care plan to minimize environmental impact. We will have launched a diocesan development plan, pre-development fund, and toolkit to guide ministry-focused property projects. We will ensure parish developments prioritize mission and community needs, with support for renovations and energy conservation. At least 25% of parishes will have participated in the Community Forest Initiative. We will continue to offer a tithe to indigenous communities and partner agencies through 2027. We will have developed a long-term policy in consultation with the indigenous leaders to guide the diocese in redistributing a portion of monies from the sale of properties. We will educate and engage our parishes and expand their outreach programs with workshops, sermons to foster understanding and gather feedback on our reconciliation journey. We will continue to support parishes, missions, and ministries, large and small, rural, suburban, and urban, to meet the changing needs of ministry. We will engage in new and emerging models of parish life. By Synod 2027, regional ministries will be supported by a structure and systems that are adaptable and scalable to the different sizes and contexts of regions within our diocese. We will integrate a mixed ecology approach to ministry in every regionalization. For example, diaspora, immigrant, and language-based ministries, generational ministries, and new missional expressions of church. Measures of success for regional ministries and best practices will be identified and integrated into communications, training, coaching, and consultation. Regionalized ministry leadership will be provided with coaching and ongoing support through the first 3 years of regionalization. 40% of the volunteer corps will be drawn from the BIPOC communities of our diocese. Congregations will have access to information and consultancy to evaluate and expand the effectiveness of hybrid and online ministry. The Project Enabling and Monitoring Group will apply research-based metrics to hybrid and online ministry grant applications. We will continue to live and work as the body of Christ, each member connected to the whole and each valued for their unique gifts. Human resources will continue to shepherd screening for ministry, update policies, recruit a DEI advisor, and enhance support for clergy and lay leaders. By Synod 2027, we will continue to implement the recommendations of the Remuneration Task Force. We will complete the clergy performance evaluation process. We will establish a task force to create resources and training for the parishes to support mental health, including workshops for the clergy and lay leaders. Records and archives management will continue to support parishes in managing their records to ensure that the enduring value of our story will be available to future generations. Stewardship development will continue to support clergy and lay leaders through educational programs. We will collaborate with the Anglican Diocese of Toronto Foundation to implement a diocesan-wide estate planning seminar program that encourages will preparation and financial gifts in support of ministry. We will ensure that FaithWorks is promoted enthusiastically in all parishes and that every household in the diocese is invited to participate in the campaign, particularly in 2026, FaithWorks' 30th anniversary year. By Synod 2027, We will follow through on the recommendations of our feasibility study to engage all parishes in a diocesan major gift fundraising campaign, with the possibility of launching in late 2026 and running through mid-2028. The case for support will include strengthening local parishes to enhance ministry programs. We will establish a $5 million emergency reserve fund to ensure stability during crisis. We will create a self-insurance reserve to manage risk internally, reducing premiums by 15 to 20%. We will increase rental income to 1.7 million through property optimization and a new management system, reducing reliance on parish allotments. Resources will repurpose underused properties for services like food banks or social enterprises serving communities and generating income. This will strengthen community ties and support financial goals. By Synod 2027, we will identify pilot properties by end of 2026 and establish repurposing guidelines by 2027. Congregation development will work in partnership with property resources so that parishes seeking property developments have ministry and mission-focused strategies. By Synod 2027, an innovation fund for ministry projects will be created or established with existing funds for parishes to purpose experimental outreach or discipleship programs, encouraging creativity and adaptability. We will open applications by 2026 with outcomes assessed by 2027. These priorities live out our 20 calls. Thank you for partnering in this mission.
Good day, everyone. The full budget details can be found in Section D of the convening circular. As you can see in the table, we're projecting income of roughly 10.2 million for both 2026 and 2027. That's an increase of about 1.4 million compared to our 2024 actuals. On the expense side, we're budgeting 9.9 million for 2026 and 10.2 million for 2027, which represents increases of 1.4 and 1.7 million respectively over 2024. Overall, this gives us a slight surplus in 2026 and a balanced budget in 2027. Importantly, based on our current financials, it's unlikely we'll see a deficit in 2025, so we won't need to tap into the OFOH grant carried over from 2022. Let's break down the income sources. First, income from parish allotments is set at 5.75 million for both 2026 and 2027. The allotment rate has stayed steady at 24.7% with no changes there. Next, we are budgeting 1.8 million from the Marriott Hotel revenue in each year. We are also projecting a significant jump in diocesan property revenue, thanks to an updated accounting policy. In the past, we only recognized property income and expenses on the income statement if the long-term plan was to generate revenue. Otherwise, it went straight on the balance sheet, with costs recovered through eventual sales. Now this policy will include properties with short and long-term leases, and we've seen quite an increase in those recently. This change will help us better reflect our actual operations. Finally, income from the Anglican Diocese of Toronto Foundation remains consistent with prior years. No major shifts there. Moving over to expenditures, salaries will be adjusted for inflation, with cost of living adjustments budgeted at 3% for both 2026 and 2027. We're also accounting for additional items like salary adjustments, retirement provisions, recruitment costs, and new laptops and hardware. These haven't been fully budgeted for in the past, so it's good to include them now. In 2026, there's a special project for the Archives Department, installing a mobile shelving unit to improve storage and access. Lastly, we're budgeting for higher legal costs. These can be unpredictable, and with lawyer fees on the rise, we want to be prepared. Here we have a trend analysis comparing parish assessable income to diocesan operating expenses. Since 2005, parish assessable income has been pretty stable, with just a slight uptick in 2024. Diocesan operating expenses have also stayed steady over that period. The spikes you see in 2013, 2015, and 2016 were due to significant real estate grants dispersed to parishes. Historically, we adjusted the assessment rate annually to help balance the budget, but it's remained unchanged since 2015, and we've found other ways to keep things balanced. Thank you very much for listening to our presentation on the priorities and plans, as well as the budget for the upcoming years. If you need to reach out to Varun Balendra or myself, our contact information is right here on the screen. Thank you again.
Thank you, Varun and Rebecca, much appreciated. For your information, at Synod, there will be motion number 5 that relates to the priorities and plans. Please make sure to read both the document and the budget so you have a good understanding of the motion that's being recommended by Synod Council. I'll read it for you now. The motion will say, the Synod Council forwards the following motion with the recommendation that it be adopted. It will be moved and seconded that Synod receive the document entitled Priorities and Plans 2026 and 2027 and approve the priorities and the financial budget contained therein, and that the Synod Council report back to Synod on this plan. At this time, I see there are several hands up. I would like to invite you to speak. Please say your name and your parish as you begin. I'm conscious also that we are about half an hour over time. So if you can be efficient with your comment or question, it'll be registered and we'll do our best to get back to you with an answer. Thank you. I see John.
John Dale Warburton, St. Joseph of Nazareth, Bramalea. I note the use of letters, MAF, CTF, DEI, OFCH, and thankfully, this one was defined, ADFT. Do we assume that people understand what those mean? I now know what MAF means because it was included in the verbiage. I have no idea what CTF is. I think the DEI is, where did it go? Diversity, equity, and inclusion, I think, but I don't know. OFCH, I have no idea what that is either. So we're not communicating clearly if we're using abbreviations.
Duly noted, and I also agree with you that that is something that we need to speak every time instead of shortening. So thank you very much, and we'll bring that forward for our presentations.
Thank you.
Just for your immediate update, CTF is the Consolidated Trust Fund. That's the $200 million fund that we administer assets for both the diocese and parishes from.
Thank you, Stu. Much appreciated. I see Maggie's hand up.
Hello, thank you. Reverend Canon Maggie Hellwig, Church of St. Stephen in the Fields. I am quite concerned that we spent years discussing and passing resolutions to the effect that we would explore the development of underutilized properties into affordable and supportive housing as a priority. That language has suddenly disappeared. I find this very troubling. Certainly, I can assure you that if we join all the rest of the world in not addressing the housing crisis, you'll have lots of food banks to put into underutilized properties. Because we're not looking at one of the most significant root causes of the extraordinary level of desperation and deterioration of people's lives that we're seeing around us. So I'm very disturbed at the complete disappearance of any language around housing.
Thank you. I wonder, Marg Creel, if you would like to speak to that, or if you would like to bring this forward at some point. Chancellor Marg. Not seeing Chancellor Marg. Thank you.
I appreciate your comments. I think they're very important. And I think that this is something that we should discuss prior to Synod and take your comments into consideration. I do note that Stu is part of this conversation, and he might have a comment he would like to make.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Marg, and thank you, Maggie, for raising this. I think what we're really faced with here is a blockage or a confusion in description. We've certainly not abandoned the notion that we want to support affordable housing construction and operation within the diocese. In fact, we've been able to negotiate an agreement with the housing secretariat of the City of Toronto, whereby they are putting forth money to support development of a combined oversight group to better manage the housing that we already have operating in the diocese. So that's one important item that we could highlight, and there are still processes that are making their way through the approval or projects that are making their way through the approval processes to build further housing facilities both in the city and outside. So we've not stopped work in that area at all, but we may have stopped talking about it as much as we should.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention. Maggie, would you like to follow up?
Yeah, just briefly, I am pleased to know that things are still going on. I don't doubt that things are still going on. If the language is not in the priorities and plans, that's a very significant omission, which is going to have effects, because we look back at what we have promised to do when we're deciding what we're going to do. And if we pass priorities and plans that omit all language around housing, I think that is actually a profound oversight. Even if there are projects happening now, it is going to affect how we proceed. And we have passed a bunch of resolutions about this, so this is not a new thing.
Thank you.
Bishop,
Appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Bishop Russell,
Duly noted.
Bishop Russell, if I may.
Yes. Yep. Varun, may you please speak?
Maggie, on the plans and priorities from the detailed plan, has that on the inspiration of faith in action, page number 2. So we still talk about all that. Maybe it should be part of the PowerPoint presentation, so that it kind of gets a little bit more clearer.
Thank you. I'm conscious also that things were abbreviated for the sake of trying to present in an efficient fashion today. So thank you for drawing our attention to that on page 2. In which section, Varun?
It's under inspiring faith in action. That is all 4 and 8.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Matthew, may you say your name and parish?
Matthew, St. John's, Norway. This conversation is reminding me of in 2023 at the end when we heard the phrase shovels in the ground. And I have 3 questions on that note, if we all remember that, what happened there. 3 questions. I want to quickly get to the rationale for asking this. So maybe, just at the end of the priorities and plans section, in section D, page 5. I'm wondering if, first question, can we actually get an update from the property committee at Synod on the Synod floor about the range of projects already underway, possibly a list of those projects. I know there's lots of conversations here and there, but I don't think we're fully clear, fully aware of what's actually going on. Secondly, there's the line in the convening circular, establishing repurposing guidelines, and those don't come out of nowhere either. Can we have a preliminary update from both the property committee and I think congregational development? That might be helpful for them to also speak to the current state of strategy and guidelines for repurposing and more deeply reimagining our uses of space. And I want to note that this goes beyond regionalization. Yes, it's a regionalization conversation, but that's just one option among many different ways of reimagining space and reimagining mission. Thirdly, was there a discussion when developing these priorities and plans of including guidelines and a congregational and pastoral strategy for parish closure as part of the strategy for real estate, reallocation of resources, for repurposing guidelines and whatnot? If not, why wasn't that considered? And if so, why was it removed? And lastly, can we get an update on the current state of maybe that strategy, that thinking about parish closures and reallocation there? All this suggests that we, in 2023 and even today, I don't know if we're on the same page, frankly, about these issues. I'm going to be more blunt than maybe is wise, but I don't know if we're on the same page about these things, and that's really important because this is deeper issues. This isn't just about, can we repair the roof or renew a contract with the daycare? It's deeper things about who we are as church, as we brought up colonialism as one example. And so in order to get on the same page as the diocese, I think we need to get greater clarity at the start here to see what more comprehensively what the current state of things are. And I'll also email this out to the diocese. Thank you.
Wonderful. Matthew, thank you very much. And I would like to thank everybody for your silent but visible participation through the thumbs up and hands up and clapping signs that you have been posting on the screen. It has been noticed, and we appreciate that there is a swell of support for further transparency around these issues in particular. I'd like to call on Louise.
Thank you. I'm hoping this will be brief. I noticed in the
I
priority.
am Louise Ditum, and I am
I am Louise Ditum. Right. Thank you, Bishop, and St. Barnabas Chester. I'm sorry.
Thank you. No problems.
I noticed that in the plans and priorities, there's implement the remuneration task force recommendations, and I'm not familiar with those. I wondered where we might be able to look at them, who is impacted, and would there be any impact on parishes?
Thank you. Yes, you will recall before the pandemic, there was a remuneration
I
working
wasn't
group.
here.
No problem. There was a remuneration working group, and since the pandemic, the work that was produced for that has not been made public in a way that is the way you're asking for. So I think that what we will need to do is revisit that in a really good, thorough way, and then bring forward recommendations from that material. I believe there's a report that you can access on the website. I'd like to call on Varun, who can help us with that.
Yes, we can send the link to everyone if somebody's finding it hard to find the actual report. So how this is going to work out in practice is that we have a human resources committee. They will be looking at it, and of course we'll be all transparent. There won't be any surprises. And it's kind of a little bit too early to say how this will impact each parishes, but definitely as things goes along, we'll openly communicate and get back to you.
Thank you for bringing that up, Louise, and Varun, thank you very much. I don't see any more hands at this time. So I really want to say thank you very much to everybody for participating today. Thank you for attending. I'd like to acknowledge and express our gratitude to everyone for their leadership and their efforts in planning the meeting. And there's a bit more leadership that is required. We are looking for people to offer highlights of your ministry with little videos, which we're calling the call and response videos, so sort of missional moment videos. If you have a ministry that you'd really like to highlight, we do need some more of those videos, 3 to 5 minutes. And we can probably do that fairly organically on the ground and submit those videos in. Please get in touch with Canon Laura, our Secretary of Synod, if you have questions about that and suggestions or comments, or if you're offering, because we would love to hear from you about that. I would like to thank everybody, especially our musical reflection providers, St. Paul's Bloor Street and St. James Cathedral. I'd like to thank our Chancellor, Marg Creel, our Secretary of Synod, Canon Laura Walton, our Clerical Secretary of Synod, the Reverend Canon Lisa Newland, Bishop Kevin, and all our presenters. And a big thank you to Lori Robertson, who was behind the PowerPoint slides today, to Ajith Phillip and Pam Bover for all the behind-the-scenes support and planning that's taken place. Yeah, let's do a little show of support for that. Let's see some celebration. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. Feel free to reach out to Canon Laura or Ajith should you have any synod-related questions. And with our gratitude, I will just close us with a little blessing. A word of blessing. God sees each of us and calls us by name, calling us to stand firm in the face of oppression and justice. May you stand firm then as the Holy Spirit enlivens your hope, as Jesus Christ renews your faith, and as God enfolds you in love. Go in peace to love and serve the Lord. Thanks be to God. Peace be with you all. See you at Synod.